Okay, let's get started. We're going to go ahead and get started. Tiffany is on her way, but we have a quorum, so we're going to go ahead and get started. She asked us to not wait. So welcome to the August board meeting, and thank you for arranging to be here a little bit early today. We've got a little bit different schedule. So Ms. Gaynor, all yours.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm going to start over here as usual with Barry Mata, who is our general counsel. Lee Kittle is director of internal audit. Kyle Owen is associate vice president of facility services. We have vice president Marilyn Foley. Chris Stovall, who is our controller. Kevin McGinnis, who is with us from the Texas A&M system. And then back over here, we have Charlie Carr, director of athletics. Provost Betty Stewart, vice president Keith Lamb. We have with us Dr. Bradley Wilson, who is here on behalf of the faculty senate today. Reagan Foster, who is with us, she's chair of the staff senate, and Cindy Ashlock, executive assistant to the president.
Our new student regent, Lindsay Shelley, is attending her first regular board meeting, having participated in the special meeting in June. Lindsay, welcome again. We look forward to working with you this year. At your seat, you have an MSU koozie right here. And this is from Julie in her office, so thank you, Julie. Appreciate it. This is cool.
Works great with Diet Coke.
I bet it works great with other things too. Maybe we'll try them out tonight. All of them. Yeah. Just a reminder that this meeting is streamed live on the internet. Please silence or turn off your cell phone. Also, the chairs at the end of the table for those who will be making presentations or answering questions during the session. Please sit or stand there and speak up. And this will help with the audio transmission. We provide an opportunity for public comment concerning agenda items at the beginning of each meeting. No one has signed up. Okay, let's just get on with this. Item 16132, Texas Public Finance Authority MSU bond resolutions, which is why we're here early today. As the board members are aware, we are starting early today so that we can coordinate action with the Texas Public Finance Authority regarding the sale of a bond. We had previously authorized the sale, but in review, the TPFA determined that we could refinance some of our existing bonds at the same time and save some money. Dr. Foley, please, would you explain all this to us?
So what you'll see before you today is a resolution to go ahead and refinance a couple series of our bonds that the Texas Public Finance Authority reviewed with our investment bankers in doing the TRB bond that you've already approved. And because of interest rates being so favorable, to refinance them, they would save about $2.9 million in payments. Almost all of that would be towards the housing system. So the housing system over the life of those bonds would save $2.9 million. So we're recommending that we go ahead and refinance those bonds as part of the entire bond issuance with our tuition revenue bonds that we'll be doing. So we're taking that action today. The Texas Public Finance Authority board is also having their meeting, and so that's why we're meeting early. As soon as this resolution is approved, it will go to them. They're going to have their meeting, approve another resolution for taking action, and then send it back to you, Jay, to do final approval. So very coordinated with them today.
So you guys, just to be clear, you guys understand it's really a package of bonds. I mean, we're not only doing the bond we'd already been authorized to do, but we're going to go ahead and refinance some existing bonds. And Marilyn, did you say how much we're going to save?
$2.9 million,
okay.
Almost $3 million.
Okay. Before we discuss further, can I have a motion to approve this resolution as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion regarding this bond offering? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At some point later in the meeting, we'll come back to this item and approve another resolution from TPFA to authorize the sale or explain some further things on this offering. But for now, we just need to get this motion done and move Item 16-133, investment overview. It's time for our yearly visit and update from Kevin McGinnis with the Texas A&M system. Mr. McGinnis, the floor is yours. Did you drive up this morning?
Yeah, well, I drove to Dallas last night. My daughter is, my daughter's.
Normally, it's like 1 o'clock, gives you an extra 2 hours. So.
This would be nice because it'll get me back to town a little earlier, actually.
Perfect.
They will schedule a meeting. I do want to go see y'all's dorm, so I'm going to do that with y'all, and then I will hit a meeting on the way back home in Dallas. Like I told y'all, I will be here every year y'all invite me, either myself or Maria Robinson, who I work with, in good years and in bad. And this is not a terrible year, but it's certainly not a good year. So I will tell you that's, we do have some good news to share, but let's see if I can get this thing to advance now.
Kevin, you may need to just turn it on the side.
There we go, that always helps. You've seen this before. I feel like when we go to see some of our managers have been with us for 25 years. So when we walk into their office for a review, it's almost like they want to hand us the book and we can do the review. Been with y'all enough years now that y'all know cash concentration pool is our operating account. It's where your operating funds are invested, more conservative than endowment, and you'll see the objectives here in a little while. For today, we're going to focus on the one-year returns. You'll see the one-year return was a negative 2.6 versus the index of negative 1.2. Long term, we still have good returns, had some volatility this year that has caused that, and I will touch on each of the asset allocations as we go through here. The main drawback for this year has been this domestic equity bucket. Tech has been down, consumers discretionary has been down, primarily in that last quarter of June, which many times drives your numbers. So those are the two things under domestic equity that lagged our performance. And then on the international equity side, our manager did fairly well, but the international equity market as a whole was down 9%. We ended the June quarter with Brexit, with everything else, and which is a very volatile time in the market. Anytime your equities are that volatile and that far down, your absolute return is also going to lag, because some of that absolute return, or a large chunk of that, is long-short equity managers. They're never 100% hedged. So when your longs really suffer, they're going to suffer also. The good news is that July, we do not have July numbers, but we do have July index numbers and our manager numbers. We just don't have the composite yet. In July, the markets were up 4 to 6%, equity markets domestic. Our managers were up 5 to 8. So we saw a big rebound in tech, big rebound in commercial consumer discretionary. All those things will help prop these numbers back up. So hopefully we will not be back here a year from now with another negative anything. You'll see our breakdown of our allocation. Short-term portfolio, y'all manage your own short-term cash, so that doesn't really apply to y'all. Y'all are invested in this piece down here, which is our liquidity portfolio, 1 to 5 year fixed income, which is a core fixed income with duration about 5 years, domestic, international, and absolute return. I will touch on some manager changes in a little while, but that's just kind of the allocation of the fund. This is your balance. You brought us $24 million. I'm happy to say that your value as of today on the market side is $26 million. So we've distributed earnings. We do sit right now, if you sold all your units, you would take a slight loss to book value because your book value is now $26,327,000. So net, you've made $2.1 million in the time that this has been invested with the A&M system. The system endowment fund is our other fund, provides depending on and continuing to depend on cash payouts, still probably growing in real terms, perpetuity. It will be here long after all of us are gone. It also had negative return. It is much larger invested in equities, but it also was invested in some other asset classes that provide some diversification that kept it a little higher than the cash pool. You'll see long-term numbers once again holding in as a nice premium to what the index would be. Same story here on the domestic equity and international equity. Developed markets lag here. Most of ours is developed. We are adding some emerging to the portfolio. And I already covered domestic equity. What kept this one up is this private equity right here. Our private equity return for the past year was about 17%. So that's always nice when some of those companies we've invested in for 3, 4, 5, 6 years are now maturing and IPOing and heading to the market. We've had a couple of years where IPOs were lagging. This has picked up a little bit, and we're hoping it continues because we have some good portfolio companies coming up through the funds that we invested in private equity. You see residual money markets virtually just cash. Investment transfer in of 11.9, current market value is 11.4, and this is what we paid out. Third and fourth quarter 15, 16 payout, and 17 payout. It's all done on a calculation, as y'all know, which shows up here. We average the last 5 years, and then we compute the payout. That way it smooths it. We don't have big peaks and valleys. Looks like a big peak, but really we're talking about 0.3% there. We're talking about 0.7% here. So that's kind of what we're looking for, something that smooths it out to where your shareholders, your departments, your scholarship recipients have a clear and dependable payout. Any questions on any of that? Here's the comparison of the SCF target and the cash concentration pool target. You'll see real assets and private equity. Once again, SCF is a perpetual, long-term. CCP is operating. We're not going to tie up operating assets into what many times end up being 10-year contracts on real estate or on private equity. So that's the biggest difference. We do absolute return in both. We do not do long-term. Grow reserves, operating needs, and preserve capital. Then on the endowment fund, dependable payout, increase future value. So a lot of that, growing reserves and increased fund value, same thing, but there's just a little nuance of each one that makes it to where we invest a little bit differently. Touch on a couple changes, just keep y'all abreast of what's going on. We continually are evaluating our managers, and occasionally we find either A, a manager that's underperforming, or B, a hole where we think there might be an opportunity. We've had a large cap value manager on the international side, and we've had a group called DFA, Dimensional Fund Advisors. A very large firm located in Santa Monica originally, is relocated to Austin, Texas for the tax benefit about 8 years ago. They are a quantitative shop. When you think black box, they put a bunch of information in the black box kicks out the answer. They invest in those companies. Don't ask them what this company does. It's a black box. Some of their portfolios have done very well for us. These two have lagged pretty much from the time we've been in them. Not so funny is that right now those two have done very well as we're exiting them. Once again, I'd rather exit them after they've been up 20% the first half of the year than continue to lag. What we've replaced them with is William Blair. William Blair is an emerging markets manager. I gotta look a little at my notes. They are independently owned companies. Typically, we like those better because that means the employees all have equity, all have stock in every day. So the numbers reflect on the employee. The employees are invested alongside us in the funds. We like that joint ownership where they're incentivized the same way that our money should be managed. They manage $78 billion. What we went into is called an Emerging Markets Leaders Fund. Here we have a lot of broad market exposure, little bitty 1%, 0.5% positions. And we still have a DFA value fund that is managing money for us. This is more saying, okay, we believe in the emerging markets area, they can identify opportunities a little better. So they're going to be a focus group. They're going to be 30 to 40 stocks instead of 100. We think that will pay off more in the emerging markets areas. So we're really excited about that change. Anytime we change managers, as Marilyn can attest, you're either going to get a gain or a loss. In this case, these managers have underperformed. You can get a loss. So that was distributed in, it will be with July's distribution. The good news is that we're also making a change to one of our fixed income managers. This is Loomis Sales. They've managed a senior loan fund for us for 6-7 years. They've done a very good job. We're pleased with them. But what we got to is that bank loans basically, fluctuate between par, 101, 102, and sometimes they'll get beat up and go down to 90. They pull back to par. Once you get to par, you're at full value. That's kind of where we're at. So there's not a lot of upside right now other than clipping coupon. So we went to Loomis Sales and went to our consultant and discussed with them, giving Loomis Sales more ability to pick out of their funds to go into high yield also. So this will be an account that will never go 100% bank loans or 100% high yield, but it will give them some ability when the market makes sense to pick up some high yield bonds to augment bank loans, or time's not now for this, could be that high yield becomes the biggest thing in bank loans to provide your safety. So that just gives them another arrow in the quiver to manage money on our behalf. Those are the kind of things we look at continuously. I told y'all before, we see all of our managers at least twice a year. We make them come to good old College Station. We don't care if they manage $78 billion or not. They're coming to College Station to see us, and we go to see them once a year. And so it really is a situation where we get to know them, they get to know us, and we can start having these discussions. This discussion here has been going on for about a year, to tell you the truth, trying to find that right vehicle. And so we know these guys. We spend a lot of time with them. We believe that's very important to us. state auditor, a few years ago, did an audit of our investment program and pretty much has used that as the standard for when they go audit other people on their investments. Do you know your managers? And we do. Questions?
How long on something like a new manager underperforming would that, before it raises a concern for you?
Our standard direction from them is they need to be in the top quartile over a 5-year moving period. We started out, people were arguing a year or 3 years. Well, there's markets that just can't go with that short. So what will happen if someone ends up on our radar, which means you're approaching your 5 years and you're underperforming, we put you on our watch list. And we have, well, this one leaving, that one's still on our watch list. We're just decreasing our allocation. Our emerging market, our international value managers on our watch list. So we start watching them. And we start determining, is their style gone? Has some of their staff left? Is it just a situation where they've grown from a $300 million firm to a $3 billion firm and everybody's fat and happy? There's all kinds of things that play into this. Ownership changes. We have one that's gone through an ownership change, it's been a 25-year manager for us. We are seriously looking at, as long as the people are involved, stay involved, we're good. But when your 2 senior owners have sold their interest to somebody else, you have to start watching and seeing who's managing. So there are times when they're not even on our watch list and we may sit there and go, not a place we want to be. But typically, once it's on the 5-year, we will either, there are times when we just basically say, okay, we don't think this is going anywhere, or in the instance of our international value manager, they've had a good year this last year, and they're, I think, 7 years into this now. So we do have that patience mentality that sometimes markets just aren't going to cooperate. Any other questions? And if y'all can send word or give me word if you want more detail like this. I mean, we do on occasion go through what, many times we call the death march, which is every manager, but that takes a long time. We don't really do that at the board level. But if you want more, granularity every once in a while, happy to provide that.
I'm not sure that we want a death march.
No.
Doesn't sound like fun.
We have one manager that has a rather large private equity portfolio, and that's what everybody at the conference calls their things. It's just one company after another, after another, after another.
Oh, yeah.
So, if you have no other questions, I'll wrap up there. And as I said, anything y'all need from us, please holler. Marilyn will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Safe trip back to College Station.
Thank you, sir. Look forward to seeing your dorm.
Okay, we don't have anything to vote on here, right? That's just presentation only. Item 16134, modification of the MSU org chart. A copy of the university organization chart that will go into effect September 1st is shown in your agenda attachments. The board book outlines the changes that were made. Are there any questions for Dr. Shipley about this item? This item is presented as a point of information only and no action is necessary. Item 16135, board resolution. A resolution recognizing Megan Pilar for her services as a student regent last year was prepared and sent to the board for review. Is there a motion to approve this item? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution will be passed around for your signature. The next items will be deferred to executive session later in the meeting. The committee of the whole stands in recess until that time or until we need to approve another TPFA resolution. We will now take a break for a tour of Legacy Hall. For those of you planning on going on the tour, a bus is behind Hardin, right here, to take the group to the hall. We plan to resume the meeting no earlier than 1:15, but likely closer to 1:30. Okay? So, we are adjourned until 1:30. And there will be lunch.
We'll go to lunch. The bus will take us.
Hey, let's reconvene, call this meeting to order. Get started with the executive committee. Executive meeting will now come to order. Members of the committee joining you today are Mrs. Burks, Dr. Gibbons, and Mr. Sanchez. The first item is 16-139, approval of the minutes of the executive committee meeting dated May 12th. Any additions or corrections? If not, they will stand approved as presented. Item 16-140, campus construction update. The board book includes project status reports and a report on smaller construction projects. Kyle, I believe you have photographs of current projects to share with us. And before Kyle gets up there, I would encourage the board to get out there and take a look. I got here last night, had some time, drove around the campus. I was amazed. Parking lots, football fields, soccer fields, buildings. This is awesome. Spent some time this morning driving around, taking a look at the map, seeing where I was. Incredible. Kyle, I gotta tell you something. All these projects going on at the same time, well done.
Well, thank you. There's a reason I don't have much hair. With that intro, thank you. At the risk of being a little redundant after you've seen it live, this is probably not necessary, but nevertheless, I'll remind you. Okay, let's cancel the next. Remind you how far we've come in the last 15 months with the parking lot, and now we have a structure. This was halfway through in November, and of course, this is where we are as of last week. Next, we have the intramural athletic fields. We, in essence,
Turning it on the side.
yeah, I'm trying to say battery. Here we go. In essence, this entire area was AstroTurf, and this is what it was last week. I don't know if you noticed on the tour, but even this area has had the turf installed on it. And notice back over here, we are going to put a couple of basketball courts in there. We're hoping to start that in the next few days. It's the big kind of staging area to do all this work, so and they've been slowly working their way out, and so that's why it hasn't started there. That's probably about 3 to 4 weeks out. So ideally by 1st of September, it would be useful for the students. And this
Kyle, what were those big white things that are to the north of that area right there? There's a big,
over here in the parking lot?
yeah, there's a bunch of stored things there.
Probably the infill. There were bags about 5 foot square.
Yeah, and tall.
Cube. That's the infill sand and the crumb rubber that gets dispersed into the artificial turf.
So they lay the field and then they put the rubber down into it.
This is the South Campus field. It's operational or in use. You notice we have a fence along there, a temporary fence, because this area off to the east was regraded and hydromulched so that they'll have a natural grass area to play to some extent. Kind of same thing over here. But it's ready. This was the MassCom building last meeting where we're in the middle of a lot of relocation of utilities. We've since finished that work and got the slab in as of last week. And I don't know if you noticed, they put up a lot in the last 7 days with the cinder blocks for the studio area up through the first floor, and much of the building steel has been installed. We also, the parking lot as of May was still green, and that's where we are now. Really, they're putting a light post in as we speak, and should have no problems having it ready in the next week or less. We are putting a fence along Beefeater over here that poured the foundations for it, but we don't, it'll take probably another 4 to 6 weeks to complete that construction. However, that should not impact the ability of the students to use this parking lot starting August 20th. So that's it. Any questions?
Any questions of Kyle? Fantastic.
Great job.
This item is presented for information only and no action is necessary. Again, I can't reinforce to you guys enough. If you get a chance on your own, just go drive around a little bit, check it out. We're going to take some of the next items out of order to accommodate executive session discussions. Next item we will discuss is item 16142, Gun College Building Project Management Assistance. The administration went through an RFQ process and recommends approval of Broadus and Associates as the project management firm. They recommend approval of this selection and request authorization to contract with Broadus at a value not to exceed $800,000 as presented in the board book. Kyle, Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Sure, as you said, we've had 8 submissions from our RFQ process, and we narrowed it down to 2 firms and interviewed a candidate from both of those firms. And the one that was clearly better than the other was from Broadus, and the gentleman, he's by far had more direct relevant experience than the other candidate. He did the nursing building at Charleston State. He did a medical education and research building at A&M College Station, done a hospital expansion outside of Houston, and several large projects at MD Anderson. So really easy choice, and I think for an owner's rep, we couldn't ask for anything better. So.
Before we discuss further, could I have a motion to approve this item as presented?
So,
Second?
Second.
Any discussion, questions for Kyle at this point? Okay, we have a motion to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item for discussion is 16144, Wichita Falls Museum of Art at MSU Advisory Board. The agenda contains the names of individuals recommended for appointment or reappointment to the Museum Advisory Board. Could I have a motion to approve these individuals as presented?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? We have a motion to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I make just a brief comment?
Sure.
I had an opportunity to be at their meeting yesterday, and as you know, that the focal point is trying to be accredited, and we just completed a strategic plan in June that I facilitated, and we are talking about how exciting everything is, that the partnership with Midwestern and with the museum is very good and exciting, and they've already submitted the mission statement and submitted the strategic plan that came as a result of that in June, and those 2 have already passed. So it's a long way before it will be accredited, but they are going in the right direction. And then also they had walk-ins, about 2,300 I think guests this summer. And then just a side note, Pokemon has been a part and has invaded the museum. And it was funny because I went yesterday and I was parking and I saw all these kids and I thought, my goodness, this is amazing. And they all had their cell phones. They were doing all sorts of things. And unfortunately, they're not counting those as part of the ones that have attended the museum. But there is a whole lot of activity. So I wanted you to know that if you go there, you will see a renewedness of excitement of being there.
And if you're lucky, you get to see Pokemon.
That's right. That's right.
Item 16145, museum ratification of deaccessioned artworks. The administration recommends the ratification of the deaccession of the items shown in the agenda. As you can see, these items were donated to the museum more than 40 years ago and are no longer appropriate for the permanent collection. Could I have a motion to ratify these items as presented?
So moved.
Second? Second. Any discussion about this?
I was just gonna ask, where do they go? Like when we
So I had the same question, and then I started digging a little bit deeper in our materials. Basically, by rule, they're either going to give them to other permanent collections that will benefit from the historic value, or sell them to the benefit of the museum. So that's the rules. Because as I looked at them, I was thinking, man, Lori could use these in the shop.
And there will be more to come. They really are doing a housekeeping.
Because that used to be, back in the day, a science, history, and art museum, and the focus is completely going on art. Okay, we have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll now discuss item 16143, Dallas-Fort Worth expansion update. The update is presented in the board book, and Dr. Shipley and Dr. Lamb will provide additional information. We also have an opportunity to hear from Dr. Brett Wallace, president of North Central Texas College. Following their presentation, we'll go into a closed session to discuss property related to this item. Dr. Shipley?
As the tour we just took of Legacy Hall shows us, if we can imagine it, it can happen. and we're here at a historic juncture to decide whether Midwestern State University ventures into new territory, unexplored territory, but not in any way intimidating territory. It's very familiar. And I'm here to urge you to listen carefully to how Keith goes back over material we've seen before, and to consider carefully the pro forma and the leasing information that he is going to present. I urge you to get to know Brent Wallace, who's been a dear friend, who's become a friend in the 6 to 8 months that we've been interacting about this opportunity. But most importantly, I urge you to be open to the changes this might bring. I truly believe that an expansion into the Dallas-Fort Worth area offers more opportunity than it does risk. I believe that the greater risk is in not advancing into new territory for us, and I hope you'll, at the end of our consideration, agree. Dr. Lamb.
Thank you. Good afternoon. In your board book, you've been provided a DFW update. It is attachment 16143. This update includes a 6-year pro forma for the proposed expansion into DFW, and that pro forma begins with academic year 17-18. So we'll begin with next fall and next spring. And I will actually end with the pro forma, but what I would like to do now is kind of go back over the journey that has brought us to today, and go over some information of which you are already aware and we've already discussed. The first thing we did when we started looking at Dallas-Fort Worth expansion possibilities is we contracted with a group called Simpson Scarborough to do a market research study for us. And the purpose of the study was to provide us some direction to begin looking at in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Simpson Scarborough undertook this study. It took a good 2 or 3 months to do so. And what we found from that is there is demand in the areas we're targeting in Dallas-Fort Worth for adult completion degrees. In particular, there is demand in these areas for education, business, and health sciences. And as you will see in the attached update, what we're proposing that we lead off with are health science programs and add education and business over time. And so we were taking those cues from the market study and trying to hold true to what we learned. We also learned there is some interest in master's degrees, and especially again in education, business, and health sciences in that market. A smaller population wanting master's degrees because there's a smaller population that are already bachelor's prepared, but there is demand for that in the market. And so we took that and we tried to mold our recommendations to go into the market around those academic programs. We were also interested, as you recall, in is Midwestern a known entity in this market? And what we found is we are not. We do not have a strong brand in the market, and for those that do or that have some awareness of Midwestern, the perception of academic quality isn't as strong as the perception of academic quality of institutions located in Dallas-Fort Worth. That's very important to note with this project, because what is happening there is what we call the halo effect. And the halo effect, if you're familiar with that, is essentially familiarity with a brand or with an item creates a halo of positive assumptions about that item. And so there is a real benefit not only to our outreach in Dallas-Fort Worth, but to this campus as well, our residential campus in Wichita Falls, where a plurality of our students come from Dallas-Fort Worth, of having a presence there that we can take advantage of the halo effect and get some of those positive assumptions about us as well. We also looked at course delivery modes with this population. Interestingly to me is that this population strongly prefers hybrid, which is a combination of online and in-person, or in-person over online only programs. And so there is a need and a desire within this population for face-to-face interaction. So once the market study was complete and it provided us some direction and suggested that there was demand, we analyzed the adult population within 5 to 10 miles of the proposed site, depending on the direction. So depending on traffic flows, some directions we went 5 miles out and some we went 10 miles out. And what we learned for the adult populations, the students 25 years of age and older, is that the N, or the population, is about 290,000 adult individuals within a 5 to 10 mile radius of the proposed site. About 1/2 of that population does not currently have the bachelor's degree. We looked at the 2025 estimates for population change in that area, and we applied the half of the 2000 to 2010 migration rate, so the real migration rate realized in this area from 2000 to 2010. We applied it at half that rate, and what we believe the population will look like in 2025 is a 37% increase. I'm sorry, a 27% increase in the adult population, a 63% increase in the Hispanic or Latino population, and a 39% increase in the Black or African American population. That's very important to this project, in so much that the dramatic increase of the underrepresented populations in this area will effectively increase the demand for higher education as we move forward in time. It will increase the demand for higher education at a greater rate than the general population increase. And so we feel very strongly about the sustainability of a campus in this location for the years to come. You will hear from Dr. Brent Wallace in a few moments, president of North Central Texas College. We feel that we have identified a very strong partner and someone we're very enthusiastic to partner with in the market. We began working with North Central Texas College on a proposed framework of what this could look like. North Central Texas College has a current campus in this location for which they are effectively out of space. The proposed framework would have Midwestern State University leasing a building in this area to both allow NCTC to expand their operations and Midwestern to have a presence in that area. The suggested framework, as you all have been made aware, is about a 67% contribution to the lease from Midwestern and a 33% contribution from NCTC. NCTC already has a number of operations on site for which we could leverage, and it could help Midwestern as well, such as security and police, library services, and things of that nature. So our vision is to have a seamless operation, a seamless experience for students where we are not producing redundant activities between the buildings, that it is effectively one site with offices that serve both populations of students, and we believe there's a lot of efficiency in that. We would like for the new building to house 8 classrooms. This would be a combination of lecture classrooms, combination of lecture laboratory where teacher education could prepare laboratory teachers, and interactive television classrooms where we could teach classes from this site, for example, or from that site and beam them different places. We believe this new building would house MSU admissions office and an IT office. We already have a full-time admissions professional that lives in Fort Worth. We would like for this individual to office out of the new facility and to ultimately had a team of admissions officers out of the facility that both serve our Dallas-Fort Worth operations and our Wichita Falls recruiting operations. A shared bookstore. We actually have the same bookstore provider, so we believe the bookstore currently at NCTC location would move to the new facility and expand to allow Midwestern to have not only merchandise but books in there as well. A shared tutoring center would be in this facility, shared student lounge space. We would like a shared community learning center somewhat similar to what you saw in Legacy Hall for these students. And then a food service contract that would likely be through Chartwell's, which is our food service provider. In your board packet, you do have a pro forma. So if you would take a look at that with me for just a moment. So you can see that in the pro forma, we feel that it's very conservative. If you look at fiscal year 18, which is fall 2017, spring 2018, summer 2018, we are estimating 1,509 credit hours produced, and this would, to produce this, that would be 126 students taking 12 hours a year. The assumptions we're making here is that only 65% of the available seats in these classes are filled. So we're making a very conservative assumption of 35% vacancy in our seats. We are also assuming there are no summer courses taught, which of course we expect there would be, but to make this a more conservative pro forma, we assumed that there weren't. And we believe that headcount is a very small headcount for this location. And if you see, we kind of filter that through the next 6 years, and the point with this is, even at a very conservative pro forma, it works. In year 3, we project it would be operationally profitable, and by year 6, we believe the deficit from the first 2 years would be fully retired at a very conservative pro forma. My full expectation is we will see many more students than what we've listed here. And I think for now that's probably a good quick history of where we've been. You all have been involved in most of this, and so a lot of this you're already aware of, so thank you for allowing me to go back over some of it and bring us to where we are today. Dr. Brent Wallace, the president of North Central Texas College, has some remarks for us as well.
First of all, let me thank you for allowing me the pleasure to be here this afternoon. I have to admit, this is my first opportunity to be on your campus, and I'm glad to be here. We share one piece of history. We share a founding father. Randolph Lee Clark started this institution, and he started North Central Texas College. So there's an interesting connection historically between the university and the community college that I serve, and so we're excited about that and those thoughts. We're really thrilled at the opportunity to be a part of this, providing really more educational opportunities through Midwestern State University there in Denton County. Just as a brief point of information for you, NCTC is a college of 5 campuses. We are spread throughout our service area, and we serve between 12 and 13,000 students a year. We are the 14th largest community college district in the state of Texas, and that includes both credit and non-credit students alike. Those 5 campuses are Bowie, Corinth, Gainesville, Graham, and of course what we're speaking of today, Flower Mound. Each campus has its own diversity of student population, and we have focused instructional programs for each of those campuses that are very detailed to the population in which we serve, and some of those you've heard from Dr. Lamb about that will also be something fitting for Midwestern State. To give you some history on the NCTC Flower Mound campus, that is our newest campus, and that was opened in January of 2011 we opened with 800 students. The handful of faculty and staff that we originally put there was intended to eliminate some of the overcrowding we have in our Corinth campus, which serves 6,000 students. And that did not happen. Actually, we grew and did not help the tightness of our Corinth campus. So the Flower Mound campus today boasts over 2,000 students. And so we're very pleased by that. We have 19 full-time staff members, 9 part-time, 10 full-time faculty, and dozens of amazing adjunct faculty, as is common with the community college model. One of the things I would say is we have full service at that campus. There's full financial aid, full business office, a full library, accredited library. Of course, the whole site is accredited through the Southern Association, but a full service campus. So when we say campus, it is not a traditional site campus. It is a full functioning institution. We're very excited about offering programs that lead there to the associate degrees in university transfer education, general ed. We do have workforce training programs. We have strong relationships with the local economy and our local business and industry partners, including the cities and all of those around. And then student development, continuing ed, and community ed are also offered out of that campus. In 2013, NCTC completed a fairly extensive demographic study of Denton, and we're finding that those growth patterns are coming to fruition in that area of the Metroplex. Our data concluded then that the strong trends in housing and population growth would continue through 2023. Denton County has already added 47,000 people in just 3 years. Between 10 and 13, they did that, and projections have indicated and are proving that the average overall of over 400 single-family and 1,300 multifamily homes are going to be constructed over the next 10 years. The 18 to 30-year-old group is really where we, of course, have always marketed to get those. Of course, dual credit now is becoming a large piece, and that's one of the things I'm excited about partnership with this institution. A student can earn so much dual credit now, and they're automatically often ready for transfer work to the sophomore level by the time they graduate high school. We offer quite a few students associate degrees when they walk across their stage from high school. That means they're ready for you immediately in a new way and in those upper level courses. Those 18 to 30-year-olds, currently there's 134,000, and that'll make up an estimated 21% of the population, and over 178,000 in 2023 is what's expected. The 23-year-old group is at about 11,000, but will account for almost 2% of the population, but the projections have that at 15 to 16,000 just in a few years. I don't have a lot of comment today other than to say we're confident that this partnership is going to be successful. We have had vested interest. That building that we have currently is our building. That is not something we lease and not intending to be permanent. We lease to own, and so we have already paid into that for several years now, and we have a permanent presence in that area. We have great relationships with the city of Flower Mound, city of Louisville, all of those areas that we effectively call south of the lake. And so we are very, very warmly received by those entities and continue to do so. I think that we have a tremendous value to add to Flower Mound, to Southern Denton County, and most importantly, the students of MSU and NCTC. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have of me today, and I appreciate you giving me audience with you for a period of time. Yes, sir.
Well, I want to maybe ask a question / make a suggestion. During my discussion with Dr. Shipley this week, she made the comment that it's hard for some of us to know how vibrant both locations are, both your location and the one in Bridgeport, because all we're seeing is just numbers on a piece of paper. So my response to that is, well, we make a road trip. And I would suggest that we find a day and the board make a road trip to see both locations. I think I'd have a lot better perspective if I could see it firsthand, and I think everybody else would too.
Yes, sir. We can work on welcome.
Any other questions? Any board members are going to have time to talk about some of this in executive session?
Well, I have to say I am so excited about this. I think it's something that is way overdue, and having had an opportunity to spend time with you at lunch, your enthusiasm is contagious, and I really am excited that we are going to hopefully take part in that.
Okay. Before we go into executive session, I want to make one comment, echoing what Nancy said. If you spend any time at all looking at higher education today nationwide, strategic partnerships by four-year universities with two-year community colleges is the direction, period, at least one direction. To me, higher education right now is a three-pronged approach, at least for us as a university. This campus, strategic partnerships with entities like North Central Texas, and online education. And as Keith properly pointed out, a lot of students today have figured out online is not the only way to go. They like that, they want that touch and feel of bricks and mortar. The retail industry has found that out. And everybody thought, oh, we can go online full time. And now they're figuring out that it doesn't quite work that way. So I just wanted to say that before we go and talk about this in executive session. So if there's no other questions, then we'll go into executive session to discuss items 16-143 DFW expansion, 16-141 facility services relocation alternatives as allowed by Texas Government Code 551.072, deliberations regarding purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. For the record, the date is August 4, 2016, and the time is
1:53.
Dr. Shipley, Dr. Stewart, Dr. Lamb, Dr. Fillet, Mr. Maka, and Ms. Barrow may remain for the first part of the discussion. Please stop the web. Session is complete. The only items discussed were the items announced and no votes were taken. We're now back in open session. Item 16, 143, Dallas-Fort Worth expansion update. Is there a motion concerning this item?
Mr. Chairman, I move the board approve the letter of intent for build-to-suit lease purchase agreement with Parker Assets LLC for Flower Mound property, and authorize the president to work with the chairman of the Board of Regents to negotiate a lease for the property in Flower Mound and to negotiate a lease agreement with NCTC.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this matter? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
No.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Item 16, 141, campus plan, facility services relocation alternatives. This is an item we discussed previously, and Dr. Shipley and Dr. Fillet will discuss the additional information in the board book. Dr. Shipley.
I'm talking about yes. At our last meeting, we talked about a relocation of the facility services from the Daniel building to just off Taft Boulevard where the Kappa Alpha house is now, and many board members felt that we needed to look at multiple locations and have more than one option. And so I asked Dr. Foley and Kyle Owen to go back to the drawing board, and they're coming forward with some more options.
Yes, so in your book, you've got a map of, shows you some 4 options, basically. The one you've already looked at, which is the location off of Taft. A second location that is behind the rec center and behind the new soccer field, kind of tucked back behind Sykes' house. And it would take advantage of some of the facilities that are already there, the alumni house, the outdoor rec center, and Sykes Lake Center. It's not enough space for all the facilities, so it would require some additional buildings to be built. Another location would be in the old Christ Academy, or what we call now West Campus Annex. Again, that would require some renovation, and it would require us to take over part of the parking lot we just built. So we would lose parking spaces there. And then finally, at the farthest north is the Hampstead houses along Hampstead. And that would require raising all the houses there along Hampstead. And we would have to take over part of the parking lots that we would build directly south of that in order to house the fleet and some of the other vehicles related to facilities. So those are the options. We can't really give you much more information than that without doing, working with an architect to kind of flesh out some ideas, but wanted to give you some other site locations that you could work with if you wanted us to look further at it.
Dr. Shipley, you have anything to add?
I'd just like to add, as you look at 1 and 2, they're in such close proximity to each other that you could always do a combination of 1 and 2, where you're not taking the amount of property that we were with the Kappa Alpha house. You're not moving into the pecan grove, but rather you're dropping another service and then moving toward 2, because all of the land that you see between 1 and 2 is also our land, and there's a nice border between the Sykes house and that land. So you could have a combination of 1 and 2. You just need to let us know whether you want us to explore 1 and 2, or just 2, or 3, or 4, and then we'll have a study and come back to you for further discussion.
Okay. Does anybody have any additional questions or comments regarding this? What is the next step then, Suzanne? What do we?
We need the board's guidance in what you would like us to have studied next, because I don't think we really want to undergo 4 different studies. It's going to be expensive. We need to know what your priorities are, or and maybe how Kyle feels about these options, since it would be Kyle's people working. In number 1, you've got a unified group. In 2, you've got a rather dispersed group. But there might be a way to bring that dispersal back together. 3 and 4, you've got groups together, but you're impinging on campus property that we're trying to get away from and get more space in. So
I think the original discussion was around number one, right? I mean,
Correct.
that's, and the argument against that and the idea that we wanted additional alternatives was because of the tap exposure, correct?
Correct.
I don't necessarily want to belabor this, and I don't really want us to be sitting here another board meeting away and having to vote on something, but do we think as a board 1 and 2 are probably the two most viable options? I mean, 3 and 4 have a tendency, for me anyway, take up campus space that we've targeted for other things in the future. And I don't know how the administration feels about that, but that's just my point of view.
I think 3 and 4 we could delete quite easily, but I like the idea of the combination of perhaps looking at 1 and 2
Yeah,
in the
'cause
same general area.
I agree with Nancy. I mean, why would we lose parking? Like, we just put it
Yeah,
in.
that's
I mean,
crazy,
That's just
yeah.
for work, yeah.
So Suzanne, Marilyn, do you guys think that if we did a study on 1 and 2 combined, we could do that economically?
Sure, we can work with the same architects that we worked
That'd
with
be
to
great.
develop the.
You're just
first
really
option.
spreading one out lengthwise in an invisible place behind the Sykes house.
Because again, I think that nobody was
Might be a good
opposed
idea.
to one, they were opposed to the visibility.
Yes. Right.
I think that's what we should do.
Okay, we'll get back with the architects and hopefully November's meeting, at the latest February meeting, come back with some options.
Anybody have anything else before we move?
November.
November? You like November? Okay. We'll work on November.
This item is presented for information only and no actions necessary. That concludes the business to come before this committee. Academic and Student Affairs Committee, Dr. Gibbons, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Academic and Student Affairs Committee will now come to order. Members of the committee joining me today are Ms. Burks, Ms. Marks, and Mr. Sanchez. Our first item is 16-146, the approval of the minutes of our committee meeting held May 12, 2016. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, they will stand approved then as presented. The next item is 16-147, the faculty report. Dr. Bradley Wilson, the parliamentarian of the MSU Faculty Senate, will present the faculty report and will introduce our special faculty guest. Dr. Wilson.
Siesta time. I don't envy having to sit in the room all day. I have lots of things to do, and so do you. So I promised everybody during lunch that I talk really fast. So if I talk really fast, just tell me to slow down. Cindy's looking back at me. Yep, slow down, slow down. So really, I just got really 3 things to talk about and then introduce your guest speaker for the afternoon. And the first is the budget. And actually, it's a series of 4 compliments that the faculty have for the administration and people across campus. The first is that the faculty really, truly appreciate the expansion of summer offerings. We think that expanded what we have to offer to the students, but also gave some faculty some opportunities during the summer that they haven't had in the past. So that was appreciated. Second, the faculty very much depend on the staff on this campus. And so the studies that were done this past year to look at staff equitability raises and then providing the staff with those raises to help everybody on this campus, very much appreciated. And we hope that doesn't stop. We've still got faculty members or staff members that are working at near minimum wage and trying to provide sustainable family living for their families. So we appreciate that piece of it. We also appreciate the degree works as we're moving forward with degree works. We think that's going to change the way academic advising is done on this campus. And I have about 45 advisees myself, each of which takes about 30 to 45 minutes per semester to deal with. And I think degree works is going to change things. So Dr. Stewart, Dr. Shipley, we very much appreciate that. And we're looking forward to seeing that implemented probably sooner rather than later. The last one under the budget sort of thing is improving the facilities on campus. Like Sean said, when you guys walk around campus, even from 6 months ago, this is looking like a different campus. I've been in and out of town all summer, and I come back and whoa, there's something new. Whoa, you can't go down that road. Oh, I can't park where I'm supposed to be parking. Okay. So that's been quite exciting, and I've been tweeting about it quite a bit. So if you follow me on Twitter, BradleyWilson09 on Twitter, you can follow me. And I like to walk around campus tweeting about various things going on campus as well. It's in addition to my food porn and other things. So we did figure out our way to Dr. Shipley's heart. Circle M Donuts, by the way. So Circle M Donuts. There you go. That's my commercial for the afternoon. The second big point that we wanted to address was the campus carry concerns that the faculty have. And I think probably all of you at this table and around the room share the concerns about campus carry but as a matter of fact, effective August 1st, it's a reality on this campus. We very much appreciated the work that Laura Fideli did in the committee last spring, getting all that policy together. That it was an outstanding policy, and maybe more importantly, that group involved all the stakeholders on this campus. I think sometimes we get into policy and we get into our little meetings and we forget, oh, did we get that faction involved? And Dr. Shipley and Dr. Fideli really worked hard to get all of the stakeholders involved in that discussion, and I think wrote an outstanding policy and moving forward with that. Then they got the policy to Dr. Shipley, and then the school year ended, and here we are with summer. And I think everybody worked really hard over the summer to implement the policy that is effective August 1st. You're approving that later today, right? The actual policy later today. And we saw the signs outside the door, so it's here. It's a reality. Some of us still remain a little bit concerned about it. The Texas Attorney General, several faculty members at other universities have filed suit trying to get the law overturned. The Attorney General of the state of Texas has ruled those cases frivolous. Maybe in our opinion, they're not quite as frivolous as the Attorney General might think they would be. We still have concerns, but it's a reality on this campus. And so at this point, what we're looking forward to is more ideas about how to implement it and how we can train the faculty to better handle the policy that is a reality on this campus. And then our third sort of big thing is student success on this campus. We're here because of the students, all of us. That's why we're here, although it's been quite nice during the summer. And the first point about that is working with Dr. Shipley on this whole idea of student success and preparedness. I know several of the faculty members last spring got concerned when we realized about that almost half of our students are not regularly admitted to this university. And so just becoming aware of some of those numbers and how that plays out and some of the perceptions that the faculty have had that maybe the students coming in aren't as prepared as we thought they were going to be. And we discussed their writing skills and all these other skills and how we're going to handle that. Is it a reality or is it just a perception? And is the perception becoming a reality? So Dr. Shipley worked very closely with the executive committee last spring to get real numbers and test the perception of things. She's been very open and very honest with the faculty about here's the numbers and disclosing them to you guys and putting them out in your packets. And I think making everybody aware of where really things are on this campus. The administrators do seem to be taking this very seriously. It was a concern that the faculty still hold. I guarantee you we'll be coming back up to all of us this year. And so we appreciate the fact that the administrators are taking this seriously and involving all of the faculty in the decision making along those lines as well as the other lines. I've worked at a lot of places where it's top down, and it's really nice to be involved, for all of the faculty to be involved in the decision making of this university. And certainly the last point on that one is we all recognize the need for increased enrollment on this campus. I don't think we've had a discussion yet today that hasn't teetered on enrollment. We've got to get the enrollment up because we want to do this. We've got all these exciting plans, but what's going to happen to enrollment? And we get it. Like, we understand that as well. We just don't want to sacrifice the quality of the students that we're getting for the quantity of the students that we're getting. And finally, a meeting at this time of the year would be remiss without talking about politics, and I'm not going to do that. Yeah, we're just going to let that one go. If you've been watching the news lately, there's plenty of discussion about politics, but we've got an expert in the room about politics. Steve Garrison is here to be your faculty speaker this afternoon. He's chair of the political science department and an associate professor here on campus. I was talking with one of my students yesterday. I get to introduce Dr. Garrison. Oh, he was my favorite professor. I didn't tell you that. Where'd he go? I didn't tell you that at all. So that's exciting. Good speaker and a lot to hear from. His research interests are comparative politics, international relations, civil wars, Latin American politics, political protest, revolutions, foreign policy analysis. Yeah, we're just going to let that one go too, given the American political system. I think with my involvement in undergraduate research, it's been exciting to see so many of the faculty on this campus working with undergraduate research, and Dr. Garrison is no exception. He worked with 3 students this spring, and it was not his first time working with undergraduate students on research on the measurement of violence against women, a case study analysis of political scales. So, Dr. Garrison, and thank you for your time.
Okay,
Okay, yeah.
Is there a clicker? Okay, thank you.
Go ahead and say it, Cindy. Turn on the side.
Hi, I'm Steve Garrison from the Political Science Department. I wanted to thank you for this opportunity to talk to you a little bit about who I am, what I do at Midwestern, and I also wanted to thank you all for your hard work. I know these meetings are a lot of hard work and so on. I'm originally from Topeka, Kansas. I finished my PhD in 2002 from the University of Kansas. Topeka, Kansas is very similar to Wichita Falls.
On the side, yes. Still not working.
Oh, okay. So anyways, Topeka, Kansas is very similar to Wichita Falls. I began here in 2002 as an assistant. Go ahead. Don't teach computer science. So there we go. Like I said, Topeka, Kansas is somewhat similar to Wichita Falls. It's about the same size. I started here in 2002. I felt like I had a lot in common with the students. In 2006, I became chair. In our department, we have a BA and an MA of political science. We have an interdisciplinary degree called Global Studies that's a third economics, a third history, and a third political science that are all internationally focused. And recently we started a women's and gender studies minor that Linda Deasy directs. And oftentimes people ask me, well, why political science? And I promise I'm not talking about the election today. It's not the focus here. But I wanted to tell you a couple stories about kind of what got me interested into political science. And I grew up next door to my grandparents, who were essentially frontiers type people. My grandmother was born in a sod house, taught in a one-room schoolhouse. And early on, I learned a love of education and teaching. And then my grandfather was somewhat of a community leader in Topeka, Kansas, was involved in a lot of things. And in 1976, he decided to run for president for the Republican nomination in the state of Kansas. Now, I assume that none of you have heard of Joe Garrison. So it was not a successful run. And my grandfather was somewhat of a character, so I don't know how serious this campaign was to begin with, but as a 6-year-old, it made a huge impression on me. I learned about politics. I knew what Watergate was at 6. I knew what an impeachment hearing was, Republicans and Democrats and all of those types of things. So early on, that interested me in politics. Also, I remember the Iranian Revolution. I remember standing in my grandmother's kitchen, looking at a little black and white television, seeing pictures like this, of people screaming, you know, we hate America, and death to America, and so on. And I remember standing there as a 9-year-old kid wondering, what did I do? Why did people hate me? And because of questions like that, I've been fascinated with what we call political protest and revolutions. This is what I ended up going to school. This is primarily what I teach and do research on. My research area explores civil wars, basically how we get small political protest events to develop into large societal conflicts, things like what we're seeing in Syria right now. And I argue that there's a biological evolutionary mechanism that operates very similar to what we see in the animal world. And I've been able to match this with quantitative data. I mostly do sort of computer modeling. And because of that, I spend a lot of time teaching quantitative research methods. I also teach Latin American politics. And I also teach foreign policy analysis. And one of the things that I've found over time, whenever somebody asks me what it is that I do and I tell them, I'm usually met with I don't really like politics. It's just angry people yelling at each other about something I don't care about that doesn't affect my life. And when I hear that, to me it says that somebody doesn't understand their political context. Because the one thing about politics, it impacts all of our lives, right? It has a big impact. So what I've tried to do as part of my career is to raise the political awareness, but do it in a nonpartisan, low-key manner. People are usually a little bit more interested in that. And so I started something called the Prof. Edwards Discussions in Politics on campus, and that's exactly what these are designed to do. We've had events such as Mayor Barham, Representative Farabee, Congressman Thornberry came and spoke to us about careers in public service. We also try to have a little fun and do a movie night that has a political theme. We talk about the movie. We do local candidate forums. This was a county commissioner forum a couple of years ago. And I also provide analysis for the local news media. That part's a little bit of my work in progress. My career in television was never anything I anticipated doing. And then lastly, I also talk to communities and school groups when I have the opportunity. And in the times that since I started at Midwestern, one of the things that I learned in the first 3 or 4 years that I was here is we had a lot of great students with big dreams. They'd graduate, and a couple years later, I'd run into them and find out that they'd come back to town. They weren't able to make it through grad school, or they never actually left. And so I've always been concerned about our students' level of confidence and our ability to hold their own against other students in the United States. And so what I've tried to do is pursue 2 initiatives that I think match nicely with our state goals of completion and creation of marketable skills through the use of high-impact learning practices such as integrative and experiential learning. I want to talk about both of those real quickly. The first one is my involvement with research with students. I've presented 3 papers, co-authored papers with students at academic conferences. These are the real deal academic conferences. They're tenured faculty or junior faculty. It's not something designed for undergraduates, so it's usually a surprise to even see them there. I was able to publish one of these papers, and when I'm involved in this, my focus is on building up these marketable skills as well as the confidence level. These are a group of students that we co-authored a paper at, for part of the Eureka project, but also I took them to the International Studies Association meeting in March. They sat along and presented their research next to people from USC, TCU, Alabama, Birmingham, schools along those sides. And being one-on-one, I think that elevates their confidence. The other thing is I try to teach a lot of data analysis and data management skills in our research courses and as part of this research initiatives, and those are skills that transcend political science. And oftentimes they're not things that political scientists want to learn about. My first semester, I had a student that threw her test in the trash and stormed out of the classroom. A year later, she came back and thanked me and said, actually, learning that material was the thing that got me a job with the Budweiser Brewing Corporation and the Human Resources Department. So it is a marketable skill that transcends things along those lines, and we try to emphasize that in all of the classes. The other thing that I've been involved in the last 3 years that I'm pretty passionate about is something called the Model United Nations program. And what Model United Nations is it's a mock simulation. It's a mock or simulation of the United Nations meeting where schools from around the world play the delegations of various different countries. Each member of the delegation is assigned to a different committee. Each of the different committees has different topical foci. You guys know Megan Peeler. Megan Peeler last year with our Clark scholar Luke Allen were on the first committee, which dealt with disarmament issues. They were charged that week with coming up with a way to regulate the firearms produced by these digital printers, which currently fall outside of the international regulations. So that's an example of that would go on in a committee, and through the week, whatever solution is adopted by that committee would then go to the General Assembly. And to be good in this process, we started this 3 years ago, and during the conference, students really have to work as a team to get their topics adopted and brought together within these committees. They have to work together, they have to learn to compromise with the other schools, they have to learn diplomatic skills, they have to negotiate, and so it becomes very intense. They also have to practice those communication skills. They have to get up in front of big rooms of people and argue their point, convince other people to support their point, as well as writing and presenting their research and things of that nature. And then lastly, they also have to practice those critical thinking skills, critical analysis. They have to produce research to develop these solutions before we actually get to the conference. And then this is something that has amazing benefits for not only the students, but for all of us. So the first thing, when I see these students, it prepares them for leadership positions down the road, for careers in whatever field it is. They're going to compete against the best students, not only in the United States and the world. 55% of the students that attended the conference this year were from places other than the United States. So they really have to judge their own not only against the best American, but against the best students in the world. And it builds their confidence like nothing I've ever seen. They literally, by the end of the week, actually walk more upright than they did before they went in. I've seen students that would hide in the classroom. By the end of this week, they're leading major discussions and arguing with people, and it's amazing. I had one student the first year say, I learned more in 4 days than I did in 3 years of school. So, you can't replace that. It also ensures that they're competitive at the highest level. Since we started this 3 years ago, we now have students that are attending places like Florida Law School, Toledo Law School, Washington and Lee with major funding, some full rides to go there. Grad schools such as the London School of Economics, Texas A&M. We had one student, Kamisha Johnson, that will be attending George Washington University last fall. She did a semester-long internship in Brussels with the State Department. She was a finalist for the Charles Rangel Foreign Affairs Fellowship and an alternate for the Thomas Pickering Foreign Affairs Fellowship. These are all distinctions that typically really only go to Ivy League students. And then because of this, that prepares the students for the advanced education level. And since this does involve students from all over the world, they make friends, the students stay friends, and it adds to the notoriety of MSU. They continue to communicate with these students down the road and so on. So that's what I've been involved with recently at Midwestern. Now a little bit of personal stuff. In my free time, I do some things to help support Shepherd Air Force Base. It's important in our community. I'm heavily involved with my family. I have a wonderful wife, 2 fantastic daughters. We're involved in basically everything they do. It's what I like to do. I love being with my family. I've coached basketball, soccer, helped with volleyball, Girl Scouts. We spent the weekend making a Harry Potter costume for my youngest daughter's Harry Potter release. And then probably, well, in some places it's my most distinguished honor. I am a certified Kansas State barbecue judge. I actually was recognized in a trophy for my exceptional work. So, but that's a little bit about me. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, I do too.
Thank you. Our next item is 16-148, the staff report. Ms. Reagan Foster, Chair of the MSU Staff Senate, will present her report and will then speak with us about her work at MSU.
Good afternoon. Staff Senate had the recent elections and we elected 7 new senators and we will have 9 remaining for the next 2 years. The elections for the executive committee will be next Wednesday, so you will have a new chairperson with you starting in November. I would like to echo a lot of things that Bradley said. The collegiality and the transparency from the administration and providing opportunities for us to work together and solve problems around this campus have been sincere and really welcomed. The opportunities to work with faculty, staff, and students to help craft the budget was a wonderful experience, and I hope that it continues. We are so appreciative of the results of the staff compensation and classification study and the determination from the administration to make it happen, the support of the faculty for it to happen, the support of the students for it to happen, and the support of the board to ensure that we're going to continue to move in that direction is all very welcomed and comforting. This has been a great honor to serve as the Staff Senate Chair. It has been an honor to represent our staff. This has been a transitional year with Dr. Shipley, and there's been lots of opportunities for staff to be a part of the decisions and a part of the things that are going on this campus. And I hope that it continues. There's a wonderful group of people coming up behind me. We continue to be dedicated to our jobs, dedicated to the students, but also dedicated to the university in the ways that we are moving as we grow. I would like to personally thank each and every one of you. I'd like to thank the administration. You don't get an opportunity to sit in a room and to be gracious. So I know you guys make a lot of hard decisions every day for the benefit, and it's very appreciative what we do. I would like to thank the faculty. It's been wonderful working with you all, and to know how supportive you are of us and the work that the staff does is very appreciative. It's been a unique honor to sit in a room and watch this board work and know how much care and concern that you have for this institution, the students who go here, the growth of our institution. It's been wonderful to get to witness. And I have to thank Debbie and Cindy and Ruth Ann, because you don't get a lot of lessons when you become Staff Senate Chair. You don't really know what's going on, but they have kept me in line, and they prove things, and they tell me what's good and what's bad. So I'm very appreciative of each and every one of you. So upon Debbie's suggestion, to have a special guest speaker from the staff. She suggested that I present myself. As your parting gift. I'm going to talk a little bit about my work here at Midwestern, so you can just kind of know a little bit about me. And I'm not even going to mess with the clicker. So lots of faculty and people, they have their mantra, they have the thing that drives them. And this is my mantra. I didn't really know what I was going to get into. I never knew growing up, Wonder Woman and Dolphin Trainer were kind of taken as careers that I thought maybe I wanted to do when I was growing up. I never envisioned myself working in higher ed, but having a passion for serving others every day has been something that drives me. We serve our students every day, and we do it with passion. But we serve this institution, and we also serve the community as we go along. So that's kind of the driving force behind everything that I do. I am not from Midwestern, or from the Wichita Falls area. I'm a product of the Plano Independent School District. I went K through 12. I graduated from Plano East. I transferred to Midwestern from College Station. There's a small school in College Station that I transferred from, and that's a different story for a different time if you'd like to know that. I was never really a good student. I did what I needed to do to pass, to play sports. I was very good at socializing. But it wasn't until I transferred and I was in the sociology program that I found a love of learning, and I found a love of just finding a passion for life. And the professors at this university really had a big impact on me from day one. I went through graduate school. I made 1B in graduate school, and I got a master's in counseling. And this is a fun picture for the past, just for you.
Thank you.
And then in 2013, I went back to school and spent a summer getting a certificate in sports counseling so I could specialize what I do in my profession. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So, service to MSU. I started day one as a student with a job. I started to transfer to Midwestern, and I worked in the Clark Student Center. I learned ping pong, and I learned how to make student IDs and how to goof off and study at work. I became a graduate assistant soccer coach when I was in graduate school. I coached 3 seasons under athletic program. That was a huge part of where I am today. My first real job with benefits and a full paycheck was working in housing. I lived in Killingsworth with 301 girls, and it was a wonderful experience. I did judicial affairs, I did programming, and that truly marked and formed who I was as a student affairs professional at that time. I then transferred over to the admissions office. I was assistant director of admissions for 3 years. I learned a lot of the academic side. I could do transcripts, I recruited, I did presentations. This is a presentation I did to a kindergarten class from an alumni that was teaching kindergarten in one of the small towns I ended up being at. So promoting education, but promoting this institution across the state of Texas was one of the greatest joys that I had. I decided it might be appropriate to use the counseling degree that I got, so I transferred to the counseling center where I worked and got my license, and that's where I continue to work to this day. And starting about when I was working on my certificate in sports counseling, I did an internship at the athletic department where I paired my counseling skills working with our student athletes. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but it started as an unpaid thing of volunteer work. In the last 2 years, I worked 30 hours a week in the counseling center and 10 hours a week in athletics, using my skills with our student athletes. So that was the service to the institution. This is the service to the profession. I have served as your staff senate chair. I've been in staff senate for 4 years. I'm also the immediate past president of the Texas College Counseling Association. I work with college counseling centers across the state, sharing ideas, sharing resources in order to serve our student population better. I also sit on the board of directors of that organization as well. Another huge part of my life is service to this community. I don't know if I have a hard time saying no, but I found myself serving in different. I am actually the current president of the Junior League of Wichita Falls, which the Junior League has been a big part of who I am as far as my professional training, learning how to direct meetings and things like that. I was a 2014 class of 20 under 40. I currently serve on the North Texas Rehab Board. I just recently rolled off the YMCA. And I served in Leadership Wichita Falls Board of Directors. I was a graduate of that class in 2006. So what do I do on a daily basis? The Counseling Center,
is a big part of what we do on this campus as far as the retention and the care for our students. One of my favorite quotes about college life is, college is easy. It's like riding a bike, except the bike is on fire and you're on fire and everything's on fire and you don't know what to do. So that's where we come in. We provide service to all of our students, but why is it important? The severity of mental health concerns and related behavior has increased 70% nationwide amongst college campuses, and that's from the College Center Director surveys that they put out every year. So the things that our students are dealing with, the severity of things, is increasing exponentially every year. Suicide is the second leading cause of death of college students, and it's only second to accidental death. So there are some things that could be one way or the other, and on average, approximately 1,100 college students commit suicide every year. So who works in my office? We have 4 full-time LPCs. Our director holds the PhD in psychology from the University of North Texas, and she's also an LPC supervisor. We have 1 part-time LPC intern, and we also partner with our College of Education and our psychology graduate school program to get counseling graduate students and psychology graduate students to come work in our office and get practicum hours that way. And we have 1 administrative assistant who keeps our ship going in the right direction at all times. So what do? We provide personal, academic, and career counseling to all of our students, and that can range in anything. As far as our career counseling goes, we provide them with assessments where we sit and we go through with them, help them to come up with a plan for a major or for work outside of graduation. We do campus outreach, psychoeducational programming throughout the year, test anxiety, how to manage stress, how to be prepared for finals, things like that. We provide campus-wide suicide prevention training. QPR is the specific program that we use, but we provide outreach and programming for all of our faculty, staff, students, even community to learn about suicide prevention. We collaborate with other student affairs and enrollment management offices to program for our students. We provide resources, money, time, and effort so we can all collectively work to program to our students effectively. And we provide also, in collaboration with Housing Res Life, our wonderful police department, we do 24-hour crisis care for students who are in need of any type of issue after hours. For the last school year, we provided 1,485 sessions of personal counseling to our students. 182 of those sessions were academic, 191 career counseling. We had approximately 3,882 campus outreach contacts throughout the school year. 10 hours a week, I'm in athletics-ish. Why? What's the point? Two people say that. What is that? Is it sports psychology? No, it's mental health counseling specific. The sports environment has both risk and protective factors for mental health disorders. Sweating, getting your endorphins up, running, all of that is really great for stress and anxiety. But the reality is the amount of pressure, time constraints that our student athletes are under, a lot of their issues may blow up. And so being there for them, having opportunities to recognize things they might be going on and heading things off before they get too severe is our goal. Evidence suggests that there are elevated risks of injury among athletes who experience depression, anxiety, who abuse alcohol, or those who have an eating disorder. So again, we just want to be a part of, they have an athletic trainer, we have medical professionals who tend to their physical needs, but this is also a need that we need to make sure that we're tending to. So what do? I help with coordination of our life skills program, events that we help to treat our whole athlete and things that they need other than just going to class or participating in their sport. The NCAA just released some mental health best practices for all NCAA programs, and we've been working this summer to implement those programs with our athletic department and our athletic training. I provide suicide prevention training for coaches and administrators, athletic trainers. That's what we've been doing this summer. I consult with coaches and athletic trainers for care of students. I'm there as a consultation. I don't do any counseling at all in the Coliseum. I have a very strict boundary line, ethical boundary line, but I'm there for consultation. I do see them in counseling in my office. I assist in direction and coordination of the Student Athletic Advisory Committee, and I help to create orientation programs for incoming athletes. So we put them through, they're allowed to come before they practice a couple days early, so we kind of go them through an orientation process. So that's a little bit what I do. Any questions, concerns? Thank you.
Thank you. thank you, Reagan, for your leadership and service to staff. Item 16-149 is the student government report. Our SGA president, Shayla Owens, is still in London with our British Studies program, and the SGA report will be given by new secretary Manny Hoffman. Manny?
Hi, how are you all?
Good.
I'm Manny Hoffman. I'm a junior pre-law political science major from Abilene, Texas. Aside from being the new SGA secretary, I'm also the scholarship chairman for Kappa Alpha. I'm the College Republicans president and a peer counselor for student development orientation. I want to update you all on some of the legislation that we passed this previous academic year. We have additional emergency phone on Sykes Lake Trail, additional AED units that are being added, also exterior lighting improvements, all of which are incorporated into the FY17 university budget. There's also an additional hydration bottle fill stations being added, and a tutoring center, which we'll be asking a provost steward or representative for an early fall meeting, hopefully to give us an update. And there's also a $50,000 budget line that's been added to the 2016-17 university budget. Also, fall break, although that has not been incorporated for the recently approved 2017-18 academic calendar, we do look forward to future discussion with everyone on that, hopefully to get that happening to benefit students. But also for the school color change, we look forward to asking hopefully Mrs. Gaynor, a representative, to come to a meeting to give us an update on what's been going on with that. And also the enforcement of the tobacco-free campus initiative. And hopefully there will be a policy update that's been prepared for future consideration to accompany promotion of this program. Some of the initiatives we have planned for this upcoming academic year, we're going to try to continue the President's Picnic. It's very popular with a lot of the students. I know everyone really is very excited to hopefully do that again. It's something we hopefully plan on continuing for quite a while. We all want to increase student involvement with SJ. It's a yearly challenge, but we're trying to get as many people that are truly just committed to student government in there as possible, and then updating our bylaws and reviewing the current incentive structure. And also we want to try to develop a student mentoring program for entering freshmen. It's one of the new, more ambitious programs that our executives have kind of proposed. We're trying to work on that. In closing, SGA is very supportive of the current campus efforts and direction, including the facilities master plan and the new buildings. Obviously, the students are really excited about the various construction development projects like Legacy or the dining remodels. The turf fields absolutely are a huge thing for us, the MassCom building, things like that. And we, like echoing the prior sentence, we're very appreciative of the transparency and the involvement we've been able to have with the administration, things of that nature. For example, with things like the strategic planning committee and budget oversight, first year seminar task force, the legacy hall, and dining remodeling, things of that nature. And also we look forward to hopefully continued representation and participation from the students, things like the new health sciences building and the Moffitt Library remodel. We're also thankful for the new faculty and staff positions that have been added to help us support our educational efforts, in particular the Greek Life and Involvement Coordinator to help with Greek Life, student organizations, leadership, and the counselor to help students with mental health issues and things of that nature, and the Director for Inclusion and Multicultural Affairs. These positions are much needed, and the students are very excited and appreciative of you all allocating that for us. We appreciate this board and keeping our tuition fees affordable, consistent with, in a manner which is consistent with the incredible value of this university. In closing, we're all very excited for the upcoming year and excited to be working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Manny. Item 16-150 is the athletics report. Mr. Carr's report is in the board book, and he is available to answer questions and provide additional information.
Thank you all. I promise I will not speak as quickly as Bradley, nor as efficiently or as well as Reagan and Dr. Garrison. But in hopes of returning, I'll be as quick as I possibly can. I had an order here, but I think I'll change it just briefly. Down about fourth on our list is a student-athlete academic success, 2015-16. It's fairly innocuous. Our grade point average was 2.72. Our retention rate was 76.2. Our 6-year rolling graduation rate was from 2010 to 2015, which is the time frame that the NCAA uses for that gauge, was 57%. All are above average, barely, but not what any of us would like to have for our student athlete or student population, I would guess. Quite frankly, I'm not pleased with these numbers. At the risk of this being the Reagan Foster show today, you have in front of you one of the opportunities that we have to help our student athletes grow in all phases of their career and their time here at Midwestern. It's called the Student Athlete 360 degrees. We've named it Mustangs 360, and it is a program that we have gone in partnership with a group out of New Jersey that will help us coordinate a lot of the efforts that Reagan Foster, thank gosh for her. She has been such a tremendous part of this program for the last 2 years. And she has been a strong impetus towards us getting into this type of thing. We're excited about hopefully, enhancing the career experience through communication, direction, and relevant discussion for our student athletes, population. Through these series of subjects, conversation pieces, and dialogue that will take place not only directly face-to-face, but also through social media and through various opportunities we have over the course of the year. Excited about it, and as I said, Reagan has already given you her background in many ways, but 2 years ago when she came on with us, this is the very hope that I had in us providing additional resources and tools for our student athletes to, 1, become better people, 2, become better students, and obviously to graduate and move on to better things, which is what supposedly we're all about. I'm excited about it. It is certainly a coordinated effort with something we're going to try to do this fall. In the sunset of one's career, you look back and you say, okay, what have we done and what have we not done, or what have I done? One of the things I'm a little concerned about is life skills and how we help our student athletes grow, and this is one of the ways that we're going to do that. And we're hopeful of having a seminar on a consistent basis for our student athletes in these areas that we're targeting, not just graduation, but career planning, time management, many of the things that Reagan has been very, very supportive of as we've gone through the last 2 years. So I'm sorry I'm spending a little more time on that than I would have liked, but after looking at Reagan's dossier, I thought it was fitting that we appropriately discuss that even more than I was planning to. But I'm excited about it, and I'm looking forward to that, and I'm hopeful that it will produce much better numbers than we've had in the past. Moving on quickly, we've recently completed our 2015-16 year. We were 69th out of 319 Division II schools. And for the Director's Cup, which is pretty good for us. Not what we are happy about. We have been as high as 29th. And for those of you who do not understand or know what the Director's Cup is, it is a broad look at your program and how not just one sport, but all of your sports, how they complete the season throughout the NCAA and where they go. So we were 69th out of 319, and 10 of our sports qualified for NCAA postseason play. It would have been 11, but our women's golf team missed it by one stroke in the last round, obviously. But we did have our individual, Sierra Campbell, who was a junior that competed and represented Midwestern State in the NCAAs. So it was a good year. It wasn't a great year. It was a good year. I think it's neat, special to note that our program ranked nationally in attendance. Football was 7th, basketball was 3rd, soccer was 1st among NCAA Division II schools. And I think it's something to note. It's also something to thank our student affairs, Matt, Keith, so many people that have had something to do with that. And I think it's relevant or important to say a lot of that had to do with our students coming to our events. And that doesn't happen across the country anymore. We've had I think we've done a really good, student affairs. And I give them a lot of credit because they've worked hard to get our students to get involved in our athletic events, and they've done that, and that's really special. We really appreciate that. So those numbers are directly reflected in the hard work of our student affairs. I made this note. I don't think you never understate this. We had no major NCAA recruiting violations. That doesn't happen every day. You hope it does. It better, but it doesn't always happen as you read in the paper. So I'm very proud of our coaches and student athletes for that. You assume that. It's easy to assume, but it just doesn't happen. You have to have good people who have the right priorities and whose values are good in order for that to take place. One of that same cloth, the next topic is if you haven't read or heard about the Baylor investigations, you're probably living under a rock. A lot of disastrous things taking place there. Not just for that reason, for many reasons. We've worked with our administration and Dr. Shipley and have gone thoroughly through our policies to make sure that we are on the right turf, if you will, to make sure nothing like that happens here. I'm really appreciative of Keith, and Barry, and certainly Dr. Shipley for, as we've gone through this, to make sure we have the right values and priorities in place, make sure these things don't happen. So it was good to do, and it felt good in a way to make sure we're doing the right thing. As a matter of circumstance, I want to make sure that you all know, because I tell each one of our student athletes and our coaches that were anything, and you never want anything to happen in a bad way to a student here on this campus. But were there to be any type of felony, regardless, and I hate to tell you this, but taking a fire extinguisher is a felony. But I'm saying any. But hopefully that won't be what we're talking about. Well, hopefully that will be what we're talking about. But if there was ever a felony, none of our student athletes would represent Midwestern State University. Were there a felony, a charge of a felony, there would not be a representation by our student athlete on our university until that charge was resolved in a positive light. So that's what we tell our kids all the time. That's what we tell our coaches all the time. That's just how we do this here. We have the proper channels to go through should something happen. Years ago, we did have a charge. It was a sexual assault charge. I think it was 5 years ago, and it was actually one student athlete to another. So it was particularly delicate and sensitive to this program. So we got through that. We did it. We handled it in a proper way, and most importantly, and this is from my chair, that it's not our business. Reagan, I keep bringing up Reagan Foster, but she is very, very, she's smart and has an education to handle things like that. Keith Lamb, Matt Parks, there are people on this campus that deal with these kinds of things, and it's really not a coach or an athletic director's place to do that at some point, if that makes sense to everyone. I think that's the most important thing to say. So we have a good policy in place. Our kids will know about it. Our coaches will understand it. It's in print, and we will handle it in a good way. So hope that works. Last thing is upcoming events. We talked at length in the past about our newest members, UT Permian Basin, Western New Mexico University will be playing in our conference this year. That will be a great thing for our schedules. It will be a tough thing for our student athletes who will travel to Western New Mexico, which is 14 hours, and Permian Basin is only 5. We just recently had our football media day, and we held it at Permian Basin in honor of their first year of having football. So it's the downside is that's the reason we have 10 football games this year instead of 11. We had to sacrifice one because of the schedule in order to get Permian Basin and Western in the mix. Other quick things, the Commerce game on October 8th will be televised on ESPN3 and regional stations. Of great interest, I think. It'll be a lot of fun once we get to May. Will be our 2017 Women's NCAA Super Regional Golf Tournament, which will be kind of neat for, it will be special for Wichita Falls and certainly our golf community, and will be housed at Wichita Falls Country Club. And lastly, the Welcome Back Dinner on August 28th will be Sunday evening, August 28th. Featured speaker will be Everson Walls, All-Pro defensive back from Dallas Cowboys. We'll have a lot of fun. Hope you all, if you have time, will join us, be part of it. And Mr. Chairman, who left because he got tired of listening to me, we are concluded in terms of unless there's a question.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I put that on my calendar for October 8th so they can be sure.
One quick question, Charlie.
Sure.
So on the two teams and the two schools that are adding in, is football all they're adding in to the mix?
No, that's the neat part. That's what I meant in terms of our travel schedule. It won't be just football. It's all of all of their sports.
Great.
And you'll have tennis and golf and volleyball who are traveling to Western New Mexico. It will be a exercise and a long drive, but it's good for the league and it's good for everybody. So we're excited about doing it. Okay.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. Item 16-151 is a summer enrollment report. The 15th class day for summer 2 was yesterday, and that report is in your additional folder that you have. Please note that at the board's request, we had requested to have the online-only students in the report, and they're now included in this report, which we appreciate very much. Summer 1 enrollment was down slightly. Summer 2 enrollment, we had an increase of 98 students. Overall, for the summer, the head count and semester credit hours increased 2.7% over last year. Dr. Stewart, would you talk about the summer online classes and tell us about the additional funding for summer school and how it affected our course offerings? And following that, we'll have Dr. Lamb please talk to us about our enrollment projections for the fall.
So I am very appreciative to the board for allotting us additional funds to support our summer classes. I would just like to remind the board that this is a base year, and this will be important to us in formula funding from the state. During the summer, we had 2 colleges where we had additional classes. The colleges were the College of Health Sciences and Human Services and the College of Science and Mathematics. Between those 2 colleges, 18 additional classes were added, and we are very appreciative of us having that opportunity to teach classes to our students. In terms of the online classes, you see that in the first term, almost half of our students took classes online. Part of that is because we have a May mini semester, which is entirely online. And also we have a number of programs on campus that are online only. And I'd just like to give the board a summary of the total number of online classes that we offer so that you can see why our numbers are so high for online. By college, in the College of Science and Math, 8 online. The College of Business, 15 online classes. The West College of Education, 42 online classes. The College of Health, Humanities and Social Sciences, 18 classes online. The College of Health Sciences and Human Services, 63 classes online. And so that's why you see the increase in online classes. That's it.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding that? Dr. Lamb, then, could you talk to us about our enrollment for the fall, please?
So for fall enrollment, we just completed our early orientation cycle. We have 5 regular orientation sessions to go. So at this time, we're tracking along nicely, but it's just really too early to tell what our enrollment will be with 5 orientation sessions to go. It could be, honestly, at this point, it could be 100 either side of our target, depending on how the next 5 orientation sessions go. So we feel good about where we're at, but it is just very early to tell in this business exactly where we'll be on census day this fall.
All right.
I realize that's somewhat vague.
Any questions for the astutely political Dr. Lamb?
It really, we have a full 5 orientation sessions.
Were you going to mention the residence hall?
The residence hall, we're very happy that in housing, for example, we have met our budgeted headcount at this point. And so I think that goes to show the popularity and the necessity of the new residence hall. We will have some capacity in housing this year, as we anticipated we would, but that will allow us to grow.
Good. Other questions? Please accept our comments in jest. It's very difficult to predict, and I understand.
No. I know. I want to be real careful not to.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 16-152 is a financial aid profile. During the special meeting and workshop in January, we asked for information on the profile of students who receive financial aid compared to our overall student population. I understand the report's not been finalized, but Dr. Lamb, do you have anything to add to what was discussed?
I think it was very important for us to acknowledge we're aware of the request. We're working on the request diligently. We're actually looking at it by category. Right, so we have different scholarship categories, and we're looking at it by category, and that's some of the nuance that we have to work through. But we feel very comfortable we'll have that in the not too distant future and be able to share it with you all.
Okay. Well, thank you very much then. Item 16-153 is the August 2016 graduating class. The administration recommends approval of the candidates that are in your book for August graduation. There are 193 students on the list compared to to the same number in 2015. Could I have a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries. Item 16-154 is a petition for Bachelor of Science degree. The administration recommends the granting of a Bachelor of Science degree to Dr. Robert McBroom, as explained in the board book. We have done similar things to this in the past, but Dr. Stewart, would you please explain the particulars of this, please?
Yes. Dr. McBroom is one of our local MDs, and he was early admitted to medical school after finishing 3 years at Midwestern. After completing his medical studies, we received a copy of his transcript and found that the courses that he had completed in medical school sufficed for the final year at Midwestern, and we would like to offer a bachelor's degree in biology effective with the August 16 graduation commencement date.
All right, we have done this before, but before we discuss this further, could I have a motion to approve this item?
So.
A second? Is there any discussion?
I have a question. What generated this? I'm just curious.
His wife called me and said that she knew we had done this for others, and would I inquire? And I immediately sent the inquiry to Betty, and I, not with any pressure since they're family friends, and Betty took it to admissions and to the registrar, to Darla.
And to the College of Science.
And to the College of Science and Math, and they processed it.
Okay.
So it was by the inquiry of the family.
Okay, just curious.
And this is their recommendation, and they approve all this, is that correct?
The College of Science and Math and Academic Council approved the credentials, and the registrar also signed off on it.
Any other questions or discussion? We have a motion and a second then. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Item 16-155, the addition to core curriculum. The administration recommends the addition of 2 courses to our core curriculum. Dr. Stewart, would you please comment on this?
Yes, we just want to give students as many options as possible as they're fulfilling their 42-hour core. We have a new faculty member in creative writing. He would like to add a course to be counted in the core, either in English or in our creative and inquiry section. And then we have another course in political science, politics in action, also giving students an opportunity to participate in an experience outside of the classroom. So we just want to give our students options to complete the core.
A question for, how does this arise when someone wants to teach it? What vetting process does the university go through?
Yes.
You must have a lot of these requests.
We do, but we have a curriculum committee where proposals are sent to the curriculum committee from faculty or departments, and our curriculum committee reviews the request and evaluates it based on the criteria for core courses, and then it moves through 5 levels of approval before the faculty member can teach.
Before we have a discussion of this, could I have a motion to approve the item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? We have a motion then and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? The motion carries. Item 16-156 is policy manual change. These are in your book, but the administration recommends modifications to the academic emeritus policy as shown in your board book. The board asked for the administration look at this some time ago, and I know Dr. Stewart has talked to us with a couple of updates on this, and so now, Dr. Stewart, would you discuss the changes that you would recommend?
Yes, we looked at a number of different emeritus policies from our COPLAC schools, from our Lone Star Conference schools, and from the major research institutions in the state of Texas. As you can imagine, each policy varied depending on the type of school. So I assembled a faculty committee with representatives from each of the colleges plus 2 additional members recommended by Faculty Senate. We took a look at our own policy that was in place and realized that we weren't actually implementing the policy that we had in place. We were only using part of our policy. So we decided that we liked our own policy, but that we would use a different evaluation system for the policy. So our new policy is as follows. If a faculty member retires, the chair or dean of the college for which that faculty member taught would write a letter recommending that faculty member for emeritus status. Once the chair or dean submits that recommendation along with a copy of the faculty member's curriculum vitae or resume, that recommendation goes to our University Tenure and Promotion Committee. It used to come from Faculty Senate. Faculty Senate is a governance body and not an evaluation body. So we wanted it to go to a body who could evaluate the efforts of the faculty member. So the University Tenure and Promotion Committee will review that faculty member's curriculum vitae and make a recommendation. The provost will also review that curriculum vitae and make a recommendation to the president. And if there is a positive recommendation from both of those bodies, then we would bring it to the board for approval. We also changed the time at which we would nominate a faculty member. Once the faculty member announces a retirement, we would like to have 12 months. For example, if a faculty member retired during the summer, after all the committees had met, we wanted it to go through the next cycle of meetings. We think this is a strong policy. We think that it will help us to give more teeth to who would receive emeritus status, and we would like to put this forward as the recommended changes. This policy has been endorsed by our Faculty Senate.
Before we discuss this item, could I have a motion to approve it?
So moved.
And a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion of this item?
Did you anticipate that there would be fewer nominees under the new policy?
I do.
Okay. I think that's good.
What is, so you have a recommendation. If the dean then does not recommend the person, can that be overridden by?
No.
Okay.
The dean and the chair are most intimately acquainted with the work of the faculty member because that faculty member is housed in that department or in that college. And so it should come from the dean or the chair. So if faculty member has a beef with the chair, the dean is there. If the faculty member has a beef with the dean, the chair can make that recommendation. But both of those are most intimately acquainted with that faculty member's work over the life of their time at the university.
And I don't see it called out in the policy, but if the provost and vice president decline, can that be overridden?
The board can. We would bring that to the board.
Okay. So it would be similar to the ones we do in the past where there's a hierarchy and we look at it.
Yes.
Are there other questions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Item 16-157 is the emeritus status, and we would need to discuss that in closed session later in the afternoon. So, Mr. Chairman, based on that, the Academic and Student Affairs Committee stands in recess.
Mr. Gregg, Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finance Committee will now come to order. The members of the committee that are here today are Mr. Crosno and Dr. Gibbons. Our first item, 16-158, is approval of minutes of our February meeting or any additions or corrections. If not, they stand approved as presented. Next item is 16-159, summary financial support received in the current fiscal year. This report is in the board book, and some of our gifts received since our last meeting. A very generous gift from Mr. and Mrs. Jim McCoy, $963,780 for the MSU Engineering Pathway Program and Engineering Faculty Compensation. The Board of Directors of the Wichita Falls Rotary Club contributed $175,000 to establish the Talkington Downing Rotary Professorship for Business. The Corrigan T and Ellen West College of Education received $40,000 from the Alcoa Foundation for the Young Engineer Summer or YES Camp and the Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math or STEM Camp. And Dr. Suzanne Shipley and Mr. Randy Wadsworth donated $30,000 to establish the President's Fund for International Research Endowment. Thank you for that, Dr. Shipley. The Alliance Center received $30,000 from the City of Wichita Falls for Idea Wichita Falls Prize money. There's always the support from our community, alumni, and friends is outstanding. Dr. Shipley, do you have any additions to that report?
No, we're very appreciative of these gifts.
Absolutely we are. All right, this is for information only. There's no action required. The thank you notes are now in your folder, so please write thank you notes to those assigned to you, as well as any others you wish to include. Item 16-160, financial reports. Administration recommends acceptance of April, May, and June 16 financial reports as previously distributed. Dr. Fillet's summary of the latest report is in the board book. And before we open the floor for questions, could I have a motion to accept the financial reports as presented?
So moved.
Second? Any questions or discussion? If not, we have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, none opposed, obviously, so motion carries. Item 16-161 is the investment report. The administration recommends acceptance of the third quarter fiscal year 16 report. Dr. Fillet's summary report is also included in the board book. Are any questions regarding this report and her summary? Hearing none, could I have a motion to accept the investment report as presented? Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 16-162, University Signature Authorizations. Each year, the board is asked to approve individuals authorized to sign on university bank accounts, purchase and sell investment instruments, perform normal banking transactions, and sign retirement documents. The recommendations are included in your board book. They're the same as those approved last year. Could I have a motion to authorize these individuals as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Why do we need, it's the same as last year, what are we doing differently?
Yeah, it's required by law that every year, annually, the board has to approve it.
Okay.
So it's just routine, but you do have to approve it every year.
Next item as well, right?
Yes.
Investment policy has to be updated, re-ratified, reaffirmed every year. All right, we have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 16-163, approval of asset holding accounts, investment vehicles, and broker-dealers. The administration recommends approval of the firms listed in the board book. Once again, these are the same firms we approved last year. To have a motion to authorize these firms as presented.
So moved.
Second. Any questions for Mr. Stovall regarding this item? Good effort, Chris.
Good exercise.
All right, hearing none, we have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 16-164. Review of personnel reports. The reports of personnel changes in April, May, and June are presented for ratification. As you can see, 3 staff positions were filled below the budgeted amounts, and 5 positions were reclassified, resulting in overall salary savings. Are any questions regarding these reports? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve these personnel changes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 16-165, operating budget. The administration recommends approval of the $110,548,625 operating budget for fiscal year 17 as presented. A copy of the budget highlights is included in the board book. Before we have comments and presentations by Dr. Shipley and Dr. Fillet, could I have a motion to approve the budget as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, your turn.
Yeah. All right. Dr. Shipley, please comment on the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Bragg. Regent Bragg. I would just like to point out that this budget work is a culmination of a lot of effort by Dr. Foley and her staff. They have added something at my request, which was the Budget Oversight Committee, which added to their work, but it also increased the amount of input we got from the campus. And so the members of the Budget Oversight Committee, which include faculty, staff, and students, made very good recommendations, most of which were followed in building this year's budget, so it was a team effort. Also, your comments during the budget workshop made a change to how we approach the staff compensation schedule. You mentioned that you'd like to see more attention in the first year to the compensation of staff, so as we revisited how we were rolling out the study, we realized that by raising the maximum that a staff could receive from $3,600 to $5,000, we'd be able to give more staff a higher increase early on. So that is a change we've made that's reflected in some of the information Dr. Foley will present. You can see from the budget highlights that she's created that our main increases in the budget come from the addition of Legacy Hall, our increased TEEF appropriations, thank you State of Texas, our salary increases, and those benefit costs that go along with increasing salaries. The budget's based on an enrollment of 6,100 students and yet only adds 1.25 FTE in new staffing. 50 staff and faculty positions, it's really important to point out, are on endowment or gift funding. That's very unusual for a public institution of our size. So we're very fortunate to have more than $1 million covered by our generous donors. And of the $110 million budget, $25 million is covered by the state of Texas, which is also not the percentage we would wish for, but a very, very good percentage. So I'd like then to turn this over to Dr. Foley and her staff for her presentation.
So let me thank you for allowing me to go through this real quick. And the highlight of this presentation will be mostly trends, so you can kind of see overall. I always like to put it in context of just not isolating one year, but kind of looking overall over the years how we've moved forward. Okay. So as Dr. Shipley mentioned, our budget's $110 million. That's an increase of almost $7 million from last year. We're assuming 6,100 in fall enrollment. That's 125 people more than last year's budget. A lot of our new monies are going to our faculty and staff in compensation and benefit expenses, and with the exception of 4 one-time items, which I'll talk about in a little bit, it's a balanced budget for you. So again, the trend, if I'd like to show that to you, we've been adding to this. This is FY10 through FY17. General revenue at the far left is our state appropriations, and we've gone down just a little bit. We got some extra money last year for Hazelwood. We may get that money again this year, but we didn't know enough to put it in at this point. Tuition and fees has been ticking up slightly over the years with the increased enrollment and a little bit more tuition fees every year that you've been increasing 2 to 3% a year. Auxiliaries, the big jump in auxiliaries is due to the Legacy Hall. In addition to that, we've got more students living on campus, and then of course hundreds of more students participating in our board plan because of it. Heath, we went from $3.3 million to over $5 million now in appropriation. So you'll see that, let me see if I can get this to work. this right here, this will continue for 5 years until it adjusts again. And so that's a calculated amount they do per formula. Other E&G is made up of 40 different individual funds. It's kind of anything else that doesn't fall in any of the other buckets goes in the other E&G category. And so that just will float up and down a little bit, just netting out all those different sources. Restricted has been ticking down. We're fortunate to get some really large gifts in these years, multi-year pledges, and we're spending those down over time. So I know that with Dr. Shipley on board, we'll be working to try to find some more of those new type of restricted revenues. Okay. This is just a pie chart and gives you a little bit of comparison with the previous year, but also shows you the context of the sizes of these different pots of money relative to each other. The biggest ones we talked about was the restricted funds has gone down as a percentage of our pie. So it went from 18 down to 16, and therefore some of these other pie sizes, our appropriations, even though it hasn't really changed much, is picking up a bigger share. And then the student-funded areas, which now amount to 53% of our revenue sources with auxiliaries and tuition fees, have increased as a percentage. Okay. Budgeted uses of funds, so we've divided these up, and as you can see, our faculty has gone up with our faculty pay increases that we've been really pushing the last few years. Faculty received a 1% this last year, so we concentrated because they've been getting so many nice increases in the past few years that we switched over to our staff. Our staff got a 1% plus that new compensation plan the first year of that. So you can see the nice jump here with our staff compensation. Our financial aid program got a nice big bump this year. Most of that is due to Texas grants. That's funded from the coordinating board. We received almost $800,000 more in Texas grants, which is a need-based program for our students. So that's wonderful for our students that need that support. And then we put about a $500,000 in between athletic scholarships and general merit scholarships. And those were both a priority of our budget oversight committee, is to continue funding those scholarship programs. Wages is flat. Fringe benefits has gone up again, as you can see. And I just want to make, I stressed this last go around, but I want to stress this again. If you look between FY10 and FY17, fringe benefits have gone up 50%. Relative to your faculty and staff, if you look at the percent increase here over the same period of time, it's only gone up 11%. So our staff and faculty salaries have gone up about 11% in total, but the same benefit costs have gone up 50%. And that is directly due to health insurance. Health insurance premiums over this period of time have gone up 60%. Okay, so not only is the state institution picking up a lot more money on that, the individual is also picking up a share of that increase. So this is just a demonstration of that cost that everybody's been talking about, and I'm sure in your businesses you're feeling it too. It's just a huge load on the institution. M&O, this big jump here is due to Legacy Hall, and that's a lot of that is like our food service and our M&O costs associated with running that new hall. Utilities, just a little bit bump up on because of the Legacy Hall, and then debt service, this is going to be your debt service on Legacy Hall, and the Mass Comm building too. Okay. Again, just the same kind of pie chart to see relatively how the sizes of the pie have changed a little bit. Debt service is going to be jumping up, and then your M&O is decreased. Your scholarships have grown as a percent, and your salaries have shrunk, along with benefits have stayed the same. So really, because of the growth in debt service, it's pushing out some of the other areas and your scholarships. So some of the things that the main things that we've invested in this budget cycle is, again, additional scholarship funds, about $800,000 in Texas grants, and then the $500 in athletic and general merit scholarships. The debt service on the new hall, faculty and staff pay raises were almost $1 million, and then again the increased benefit costs almost $1 million. IT maintenance agreements, You're gonna see this on the list every year, because we have the same maintenance agreements, but there's escalation in the contracts with those companies, Elution, Oracle, Microsoft. They just kind of build it into the contract. You don't really have a choice. I mean, you can't say we're gonna stop using Microsoft or Oracle, so you just have to accept that. We've added 1.25 new positions, so that's in this line item, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then we've added a couple of new graduate assistantships for some new graduate programs that we have on campus, and increased the stipend amounts to be competitive with other institutions. And then we have done, this is a new item, to put some money towards graduate student recruiting to continue increasing our graduate enrollment. Our one-time investments this year are only $235,000. As you noticed when you took the tour, we had some new mailboxes in the new residence hall. In the student center, that space will be vacated, and we're putting in automated parcel lockers that the students can come over and pick up their parcels at any time. They don't, the mail office doesn't have to be open for them to pick those up. So that'll be a really nice feature for our students. And then some other student oriented things with the Wichita Voices computers. Degree Works, you heard how important that is. This is just a one-time. Once it's implemented, we don't have to repeat that expense. And then to really enhance the Commons Learning Center and the multi-purpose room, we're going to put a little bit more money into the furniture in there. The total's $235,000. Heath, as I mentioned, we got a $5 million, which is about $1.7 million, $1.5 million more than we had before. Facility services will be getting about $1.8 million for their maintenance and renovation costs across campus. Debt service is going to be picking up $1.2 million. Information technology is kind of an annual amount that we throw into our computers to upgrade our classrooms, our computer labs, desktops, that kind of thing. Library, that's for our subscriptions and book purchases. We use Heath for that. Academic equipment, Dr. Stewart uses that to distribute among the colleges for some of their equipment needs. And then our general university, things like the students talked about today on the some of the lighting and things that the students wanted. And we're reserving some for some space as we need to switch people around campus when we tear down McGahey. We're going to have to move our TRIO program into the West Campus Annex, so we reserved some money for that move. The police, we'd like to move them out of their location, so we might have some money there that we have to move them into to another location. So we just set aside some reserves. On our increases, the 7.25, most of those you already know about because you've approved them. So these up here, the 6.5, you have already approved. The internal auditor, additional internal auditor for half a year, our director of equity and inclusion you've already approved, and then the legacy hall staffing needs you've already approved. This is our one faculty position we're adding for our outreach into Wise County, and then also to we're going to eliminate some of our adjunct teaching, and this position would also pick up some of that adjunct here on campus. These two positions here, the counselor for 9 months, as you heard Reagan, they have plenty of counseling needs, and the students went ahead out of their students' fee money, wanted to go ahead and add these two positions, an additional 9-month counselor, and somebody to help out with student activities. Engineering advisor, that was from a restricted gift to add that position, and then we've eliminated 2 positions. So the net after the ones you've already approved is only up 1.25 positions, 1 faculty and 1/4 of the staff position. On the MSU reserves, these are, let me explain this a little bit. We estimate what our year-end balances are going to be. So again, we're starting with kind of an estimated number, and then we take this budget and we say, based on this budget, the revenues coming in and the expenses going out, this is where we think we'll end up with our different fund groups. So it's a very estimated process. So with state appropriated funds, we think we'll be at about $600,000. Designated funds is a lot of different areas, but that's where the majority of our fund balances reside. Auxiliary funds, this has decreased a little bit from where it was when I did this report to you last year, because we're using some of this to finish out Legacy Hall. So some of the reserves we're using to do that. The gifts and grants has fallen off as well because we're spending down some of those multi-year pledge gifts. And then plant funds, it's gone down a little bit because we've purchased some properties, and then the roof repairs that I think we've talked about a lot, that money was in construction process funds, and we've used those to fix the roofs now, so that's gone down. So overall, we've gone down a little bit from the last time that I made this report to you last year, but it's still healthy fund balances. I would like to see a little bit more. As a finance person, you always want to see that number bigger, but it is healthy, and we're doing fine. So with that,
Marilyn, let me ask you on that just right quick. It looks like we don't have any just undesignated funds.
The designated funds would be where, like, your interest income, that would be unrestricted, is what you're probably thinking about, is unrestricted monies.
Well, how do they get designated? Did we designate them, or? I mean, it looks like to me that should be undesignated, but.
Right, they're just called designated, but you could have them designated as unrestricted monies too. Interest income is a designated fund, but it's unrestricted.
How much of that's restricted?
In this designated? Yeah. I would say half, maybe, you could say.
So there's probably $5.5 to $6 million of unrestricted funds.
Yeah.
Well, but I'm still struggling with what is it designated for?
Well, suppose like recreation, the rec fee. The recreation fee is a designated fund.
Okay.
Okay, but it's designated for the recreation center, so I could take that and pay faculty.
I get that, because we took action to designate that because we told students we pay that, it's designated for that purpose. Now, but half that probably is not really designated, if I'm hearing all this right.
This terminology is basically just a terminology. You know, you've got regular restricted funds, but designated, board designated type funds and activities are all captured in a particular block of our finance system, in our financials. And so I use that term designated maybe a little too loosely, but the designated funds are truly those that the board designates on how we use those funds.
But I don't think we've done that.
I'm kind of with Jeff here. I mean, I want us to be really careful about terminology because believe me, I am not a not-for-profit expert by any stretch, but I've done enough to be dangerous. And so I'm a little bit concerned about what he just said, and then tacking on to what you just said, I would venture to say that the board does not necessarily designate funds, okay? The administration might, but we're not necessarily designating funds, and that concerns me a little bit that we're having that conversation. So I'd really like to know of that $11.6 million, what is in there, and I think this is the point you're getting to, Jeff. If we run into a box, how much money is sitting in there that we can pull and use for whatever we need to solve the problem? That's what we need to find out. That's the question.
Right, I'd say it's probably $4 to $5 million.
Okay.
And my interpretation, just so you know, if you remember the old fund accounting, you had state, designated, auxiliary, agency, loan.
Right.
And that's that terminology.
But I would take position that $4 million is unrestricted, undesignated.
Right.
I don't believe it's designated because I don't believe we designated.
Well, it's designated. I'm going back to the old fund accounting. The old fund accounting was you had state, designated, auxiliary, loan, agency. So in designated, interest was in there. And interest is undesignated.
But we haven't designated interest.
Right,
well,
but that
see,
was just the old
I
fund.
get there because I see includes tuition fees, blah, 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 blah. I mean, to me, we're not designating tuition and fees. I mean, it's just,
That's the old fund accounting terminology.
They don't like having to do it.
It's actually a NACUBO/GASB definition of where the money resides in our chart of accounts. So designated in the old system that Dr. Pillay was alluding to, basically is board designated based on the nature of the fee or the statute that allows the fee to be charged.
Okay.
But there are undesignated revenues in the designated fund group, if that muddies it up any.
Well, number one, that's an improper use of the old terminology because the board, the only way funds can be designated is if we designate them, which we haven't. Secondly, we're in, once GASB 54
Oh, no, please don't start quoting.
came out, you have unrestricted, assigned,
Temporary restricted and restricted. You got the three categories, right?
no, you have unrestricted, restricted, assigned, or unspendable.
Sam's eyes are glazing over.
My eyes are glazing over, and I'm going to count.
I would still take position that $4 million of that is unrestricted, period.
Right. And I can
And
break that out in future.
and should be shown that way.
Let's break
Yeah,
it out.
I think that in a nutshell, I think that $19 million, I think this board wants to know if
How much we
in
can
the
spend.
box, how much can we spend?
Yeah.
That's what we need to know.
So I'd say between 4 and 5, and I can pin that down.
And look, I get that all this stuff's been redefined. It's been 20 years since I've done an audit on a not-for-profit. So at the end of the day, I know enough to be dangerous, and that's what frightens me about this. So I think it's, as a rule, what we want to know is how much of that 19 million can we use in the box?
Right.
And where is it?
Yeah, where is it?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at the list of all the investments and stuff, I know a lot of that is money that's invested, that's restricted funds and all that, but of the amount of money that's available to us, how much is it on site and how much is it elsewhere?
Right.
Okay.
Right. I can do that for you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Can she do that at a close of budget after this year? So when,
Yeah, that's
when
financial, after the end of the.
I would
financial
prefer
year.
that we look at that when we've closed out this year, so we
Yeah.
have a starting point.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
So
That'd be
November,
great.
I can give a.
So we want a practical guide of what would be available to us in case of an emergency.
And Suzanne, I'd even go so far as to recommend that we don't waste any board time on this. Just send us something. Let us look at it. When she gets it done, just send it to us.
Okay.
That'd be my recommendation.
So this is a really good budget. I mean, I'm very happy with this budget. In past years, as you know, we've had, some struggles, but this is a really good, solid budget, and I'm really happy with it.
Can I make a quick observation? I just want to commend you guys for what you've done here, because I can tell you in past board meetings, when we've had when budgets come to us, it's been, no preparation, no preconditions, no nothing. It just ends up in front of us a week before we walk in here. The budget workshops, the budget work that was done by staff and faculty is unbelievable. I mean, you open this up and you're not looking at just a bunch of numbers. You're looking at stuff that we've all talked about already. So this is just the culmination of it. I had to say that because I remember sitting in here looking at numbers going, I just got this a week ago. How am I supposed to go through this and understand it? And that's not the case.
Good, thank you.
I agree. Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, Valerie. Appreciate both of y'all. And as Suzanne pointed out, the budget really didn't change any from the workshop except for the additions to the compensation study. So, and the fact that we got balanced, congratulations to everybody. All right, does anybody have any additional questions or comments? Sam?
So, where I guess I'm glazing over is, I think we've talked about in the past when we get money that is restricted, like it can only, but the gift of bowling, right? Is that in that?
Yes.
So there is. So I
It was
see.
on the sheet, it wasn't in that designated.
Right.
It was below,
that would
it
be
was in
in-
the 5 million number, right?
Right, that was that restricted line. It's in there.
Perfect. Okay.
Sam, that's why I
That's why I was
that's
like,
why
okay.
I asked about the 19 and didn't just focus on the 11. I'd like to know the whole 19, how much
Well,
is used.
there should be three categories. It should be restricted, assigned, which is all designated, and unrestricted. Assigned is money we assign, that we chose to assign. Restricted is money that's restricted because it was donated for a certain purpose or it's been collected for a certain purpose. And unassigned is what we can spend. I'll be in those three categories, period.
Unglazed.
Unglazed.
Totally baked. Go spin.
Y'all probably never have that discussion, Coriel and Coriel.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none with a motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, and Mr. Chairman, that concludes the business of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Gregg. Mr. Sanchez, Audit, Compliance, and Management Review Committee.
Thank you, Chairman Hesse. The Audit, Compliance, and Management Review Committee will now come to order. Members of the committee here today are Ms. Burks, Mr. Gregg, and Dr. Sweat. The first item, 16-166, is approval of the minutes of the committee meeting held May 12, 2016. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, they stand approved as presented. Item 16-167, Audit and Compliance Activities and Audit Plan. Chris Stovall, Controller and Chair of the MSU Compliance and Ethics Coordinating Committee, will update us on compliance activities. He will be followed by Director of Internal Audits, Lee Kidwell. They will report on audit activities and will present her proposed audit plan for approval. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I get started, I just want to make sure and point out that if I use the word "we," it's collectively, that I'm not taking very much credit for the work that's been done since May. The work of Lee and Barry and the committee, they've really done a good job of keeping compliance in the forefront. So if I do say "we," I'm not taking any credit. I'm just a conduit to provide you the assurance that the work is being done by some hardworking people. As you may recall, at the May meeting, the board approved Policy 2.26, which formally established the Institutional Compliance and Ethics Program. And one of the provisions of this policy requires regular updates to the board on the content and operation of the Compliance and Ethics Program. So I want to provide a brief update of what's happened over the summer since the May meeting. The compliance partners who serve on the coordinating committee created compliance calendars for each of their respective areas to ensure compliance and continued compliance with all the legal and regulatory requirements. These calendars will be maintained, updated as necessary, and then published to our compliance and ethics website. This really will help us to ensure continuity in the event of staff turnover, and it will also provide Lee a mechanism to go in and routinely and regularly audit those areas as part of her audit plan to provide further assurance to the board that we're compliant university-wide. Two subcommittees have also been created to address some high priority compliance areas identified by the committee. The first of which is a Clery Compliance Subcommittee. This committee has been very active over the last couple of months, educating the members on the Clery Act through trainings and webinars. We've also created Clery maps to identify campus locations that are subject to mandatory Clery reporting, discussing various reporting requirements and other things that are required under the law, and then comparing the Clery Act to Title IX. The ADA Accessibility Subcommittee was also created. This committee met just this week, in fact, and its charge will be to review the federal and state accessibility regulations, and specifically how those regulations apply and pertain to information technology. You've heard Dr. Stewart comment on the online learning, and the accessibility of those information resources is really changing the landscape as far as ADA, which was passed back in, or the last iteration in the 90s. So there's some challenges in higher ed to make sure that we're all compliant with these federal and state mandates. And this includes looking at our online courses, distance education, social media, university website, the portal, which is a single sign-on for our students, faculty, and staff, computer labs, and the library as well. The subcommittee will work to determine processes, responsibilities, standardization, best practices, and timeliness for retrofitting systems to ensure we're compliant with ADA as well as the Texas Administrative Code, or TAC. Lee has the codification memorized, I think, because she's read all of them, but I'm not quite that up to speed. An information technology subcommittee will also be created late September, early October. The timing of this will be once the IT audit has been completed by Myers and Stauffer so that we can address and correct any audit findings from that. And that report will be forthcoming shortly. Secondary duty of this committee will be to collaborate and establish information technology priorities and campus-wide goals, which will help us to centralize the purchasing of information technology products, and that'll help us to ensure that continued compliance with the use of technology and information security regulations. The Director of Internal Audit, Lee Kidwell, the University's General Counsel, Barry Maka, and myself as the Chair of the Compliance and Ethics Coordinating Committee, will continue to meet weekly and keep compliance at the forefront, even though our schedules are quite full in some weeks, but we make an effort to meet every week to discuss compliance concerns across campus. Barry Lee and Steve Shelley, the Director of Purchasing and Contract Management, have reviewed Senate Bill 20 from the last session, the 84th legislative session, and particularly focusing on how it relates to contract management, which will drastically change how we do business as a university and what's required on every contract that the university enters into. They're currently in the process of developing an implementation plan for the campus, as well as training for faculty and staff. The MSU Contract Management Handbook has been updated accordingly to include language from Senate Bill 20 to make sure that our policy and procedures are up to date. Additionally, the ethics policy for employees of MSU will be updated to address new requirements of SB 20. And finally, a new policy, suspected dishonest or fraudulent activities, will also be created as a result of this legislation. And lastly, because I know you're probably tired of hearing about compliance already, the Fraud, Compliance, and Ethics Concern webpage has been updated and moved under the Director of Internal Audit, which is more appropriate. When that office was vacant, we had that under Barry Maka, which in the interim worked well, but now that Lee is up to speed, we've got that under her area, so she'll be monitoring that. We'll be working to continue to inform and educate the campus on how that product is used, the Ethics Point Anonymous Hotline. And I'm happy to report the hotline was implemented back in December 2015. There have been no complaints as of the end of July. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the update of university compliance activities.
Does anybody have questions for Chris? I would just comment, I want to tell you guys thank you very much. The way you guys continue to work together as a team is phenomenal. It's really helped address a lot of concerns that as a board we all have, common concerns that benefit the university and this board specifically, so thank you for all the hard work. If not, then we'll move on to Lee.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Regents. I'll follow Chris's compliance with the audit focus for the last 3 months. I've focused on really 2 main areas: the fiscal year 2017 audit plan, which is in your board book for your approval this afternoon, and the second area that I've spent a lot of time on is our information security compliance audit. Back to the audit plan, we're required by the Internal Audit Act of Texas to provide the board a plan of what areas I'm going to focus on for the next year. The Audit Compliance Committee has reviewed it. Both Dr. Shipley has signed off on it, and I hope you'll approve it this afternoon. With the addition of a staff auditor halfway through the year, the number of hours available for audit projects has increased to a little over 2,700, and that's after consideration of university holidays and sick leave. So a lot of audit projects required by statute, but there's enough time to continue looking at information security compliance, as well as allocating time for projects, special requests, investigations, and just running the office. So that is presented for your approval. The security compliance audit is the only audit that was on the fiscal year 16 plan due to the limited number of hours available in this fiscal year. I'm happy to report that the audit is almost complete. We had one auditor up from Austin, the firm that was awarded the contract, Myers and Stoffer, that Chris mentioned. He was here on just Tuesday and Wednesday this week, so the field work's completed. They're reviewing all of the information that we've been submitted. I'll have a preliminary report in September. I will bring the final report to the board in November, as well as an update on how we've addressed any concerns or non-compliance. I want to publicly thank Jim Hall, our interim CIO, excuse me. He's done a phenomenal job. He and I started planning for this audit back in March, when he and I both became very familiar with the Texas Administrative Code 202, which requires all state agencies and all public universities to comply with a baseline of information security to protect the university. You know, if something happens to the computers, it really affects business now. So I'll be happy to report those findings, but it was interesting. We've got some areas to take care of, but it's a good place to start, and it'll tell us they're going to prioritize any needs or concerns that they've seen during the audit process, help us prioritize, and then we'll be able to address any of those areas and then stay in compliance for future years. So we're really excited to have that almost completed.
Fantastic. Are there any questions of Lee regarding her report or the proposed plan? Well, I will tell you as a side note, there is a new case law that has personal responsibility for people who are in supervisory positions over personal information and it being disclosed, whether it's inadvertent or somebody hacks into it, if security measures aren't sufficient. So the type of audit that Lee and the team did is tremendously important. And I know this has been kind of a hot button thing on IT and data, protection. And so it's great to hear that, we're addressing it, and hopefully we'll get some good findings from that and not have much to do.
No, it's very comprehensive, and it all is focused on controls, anywhere from accidentally clicking on a phishing email up to even the physical and environmental aspects of controlling your equipment and the data that's stored there. So it's a very comprehensive audit that we'll be able to bring to the board, and also between the time the report is issued in the November board meeting, we'll be able to report how much of any issues have been handled or addressed, and then we can tell you the plan going forward.
Fantastic. Well, can I have a motion to approve the audit plan for 17 as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? None. The motion carries. Item 16-168, policy manual changes. A new policy and revised policy are presented for your approval. The proposed campus carry policy was developed to put in the policy manual format the policies and the rules that were approved by the board in May. Dr. Shipley is going to provide some comments, and Chief Coggins and Mr. Mock are here to answer questions as we may have them. Before we have, I guess, Dr. Shipley, you want to go ahead?
Sure, thank you. I would like to point out that the policy in your book is as suggested by the campus when we finish with commencement in the spring. So it's formalized here before you. Since that time, Chief Coggins and Mr. Maka and others have been part of a campus carry implementation task force. And the signage you see today is a result of that task force. The policy you see before you is a result of that task force. And I think what you'll see is this policy will continue to evolve as we live with it, and we have suggestions about how to improve it. But I particularly want to tell you that Chief Coggins is on it. He's taken great care to see what other campuses are doing and to make sure that we're going to be providing the best training, the best interaction, the best listening and response we can for this new policy. So please go ahead and help us understand it. Thank you.
Well, as Dr. Shipley said, this policy that you have before you really implements the work that was done by the initial campus carry committee. And we just basically took, the areas where there might be restrictions as far as carrying weapons, and we just simply implemented those into the policy. Chief Coggins, of course, headed up that policy, that committee, and I don't know, we met
Four times.
Again, kind of a campus-wide committee that looked at prior work of the regional committee, and we put it into policy form for our policy and procedures manual. And I don't know what else to say unless y'all have any questions.
I have a question, if I may.
Before we go there, before we have further comments and questions, can I have a motion to approve this policy as presented?
So moved.
A second? All right, have at it.
Okay. The Safe Campus Training, I was really pleased to see that that's going to be given. Can you share how often that will be offered?
Well, we don't have a schedule set yet, ma'am. In fact, we're still in the process of creating that training. That's not been created yet.
But that will be available to students that are, okay. Is it just for those that carry, or is that for
Just
everyone?
for anybody who wants to attend. It's not going to be mandatory training. There's really not going to be a mandate. It's just going to be offered for those who want it.
Well, I do appreciate the aggressiveness in that and hope to see that often, being offered.
And of course, we'll have a web page where you can access information about the campus carry policies. And there'll be a link to the policies. Will that be a part of the orientation process, Chief? Will you be involved in any of that?
We're going. The thought right now is it's probably going to consist of a video that will cover the general tenets of the policy and the law, and so that it'll be available online to anybody who wants to see it. And I'm sure we'll make it as part of the orientation process at the beginning of each semester, prior to the beginning of each semester.
And are there going to? I mean, I know that there were exclusions, but how are the students going to know? Is it just going to be the signing, or are they going to have information like of exclusionary areas where it's not available?
Currently, Mr. Sanchez, we have the policy that you have in front of you has in it permanently excluded locations. We worked with the academic deans and the college deans to identify the laboratories. We took what the previous committee had put together and made those excluded locations. And we have a total of, right now we have a total of 141 signs on order. These signage, there are several ways that a person can receive notice under penal code that they aren't to carry. We can do it with the signage, like what you see outside when you came in the door. We can also do that. People can verbally be told that they're not allowed to carry in a particular location. The majority of the places we're talking about, in fact, all of the permanently excluded locations are going to have signage attached to them. That's in process right now.
The only reason I make that statement is because I have a college student. He's not going to read the policy, but he'll pay attention to signing. It is a concern that yes.
Let me add on a couple of things to that too, as far as students. We'll also obviously have a web page where they can see that. We'll have it in the student handbook, the exclusionary locations, and then we'll also, when students move into the residence halls during their trainings, we'll be able to go over some of that with them.
Okay.
So this is especially important based on what Dr. Shipley said about the policy evolving. This is a very dynamic situation, and as it evolves and changes and begins to gather some momentum, if you will, it's going to be important to communicate these things to the students and to the campus as large. So you guys need to be thinking about that, because Sam's absolutely right. I mean, college students aren't going to go out and look at the policy, but they'll read signs and they'll listen to email traffic or Twitter feeds or whatever. We just need to be able to communicate any changes that come up as this thing evolves.
And one of the best ways to do that is to choose a timeline, like once a semester or once a year. You add changes. So in a faculty handbook situation, you don't vote on something in Senate and then change the handbook. You accumulate those things normally and change them all at once, because you can't keep people up to date. So when we get the implementation committee back together, we should talk about, do we want at the end of every semester to update the policy and reissue it, or do we want that to happen once a year? But I wouldn't suggest doing it more often than that.
I would even encourage you guys, I mean, I know, student government is one of those organizations that can help get that message out to students. Because the only reason I make mention of that is because his concern is, we were sitting there were a couple of friends at the table, we were talking about this and going back to campus. And they said their concern was just like, how do we know, like, when we're going to a place that's not acceptable or it is acceptable? One of their friends is absolutely taking a weapon to campus. And he was like, well, I guess I'll read up on it. He goes, but if it's, college is one of those things where, hey, we're meeting here, this is going on, there's a guest speaker, there's something impromptu, there's a pep rally, whatever it may be, that then can I not? And those are things that I think it would be difficult for them to discern. So I would just, however it is, I know it's going to be complicated, but I would just encourage that to make sure that there's those kind of conversations going on.
Understood. And the signage, as I mentioned, is going up, and as you can see from the size it is here, it's not going to be easily missed.
Yeah, it's big. I like that it's mobile too, so you can take it wherever you need.
Some of it's mobile. Most of it will be fixed to building.
Okay, well that'll be good. Well, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Our next policy relates to police ordinances. Chief Coggins proposed 3 changes to bring the policy up to date in line with current procedures. Before we have questions and a discussion, can I have a motion to approve this item as presented? A second? Are there any questions for Chief Coggins or Dr. Lamb? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes the business to come before this committee today, Chairman.
Chief, thank you for your hard work. I mean, this is not easy.
I appreciate you.
Jump into this. The Committee of the Whole and the Academic Student Affairs Committee will now reconvene. The Board of Regents will go into executive session to discuss items 16-136, real property, 16-137, gifts and donations, 16-138A, consultation with attorney regarding legal matters impending and/or contemplated litigation, and item 16-157, emeritus status is allowed by the Texas Government Code sections 551.071, .072, .073, and .074. For the record, the date is August 4th, 2016. The time is very late in the day. Dr. Shipley, Dr. Stewart, Dr. Lamb, Dr. Filet, Mr. Maka, and Ms. Barrow may remain for the discussion. Please stop. The closed session is complete. The only items discussed are the items announced and no votes were taken. We're now back in open session. Committee of the Whole will resume. Item 16-136, real property. Is there a motion related to this item? 136, real property.
Mr. Chairman, I move the board authorize the president to enter into a lease agreement related to the development of the university's oil, gas, and mineral interest in Reeves County, Texas.
Perfect. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion on this matter? All in favor? Motion carries. Item 16-137, gifts and donations. Is there a motion related to this item?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board authorize the administration to negotiate a gift agreement with naming privileges related to the Legacy Hall.
Thank you. The second? Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Committee of the Whole is adjourned. We will now return to the Academic and Student Affairs Committee. Dr. Gibbons.
Mr. Chairman, item 16-157.
Yes.
I move that Dr. Howard Farrell be granted emeritus status upon his retirement following 29 years of service to Midwestern State University.
Okay. We have a motion from the Student Affairs Committee. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Perfect. Do that tomorrow, yes. Right? Okay. I think that's it. Well done. Way to hang in there. We are adjourned to burgers.
At 6 o'clock at the Lake Center, as you go past the Wellness Center Park. Casual.
Casual.